I call to order this public hearing of the SUSD Governing Board. It is December 14th and 5:02 p.m. We'll start with the roll call from my far right, viewers left.
Zach Lindsay.
Libby Hartwells.
Do we have anyone in the crowd? Nope. And Julie Sanowski. We do have a quorum. Dr. Menzel?
Thank you, President, Vice President Sanowski, and members of the Governing Board. Each December, we have an opportunity to amend our budget based on information that materializes after the initial budget adoption. I'd like to introduce Shannon Crozier, our CFO, to review the data and present the information this evening.
Okay, great. All right. Vice President Sanowski, members of the board, Dr. Menzel, and guests, tonight we are looking at Budget Revision 2 for this year. As mentioned, this is something we typically do every December, and depending on how much the revision is, you're actually required to do, which was the case for tonight, as well as do a public hearing. So, by statute, if you are reducing your budget by 1% of the general budget limit, which we are, then you are required to do that by December 15th, which is why we're here doing it tonight. So the first thing we'll look at is the significant changes. The big change, which drives this, is average daily membership. One thing I will point out is our membership declines every year. We're kind of aware of that will happen. With enrollment being counted on as current year enrollment, it's a little hard to always figure out how that's going to land. The other thing that's playing a part with us this year is we have students that are enrolled in online learning. I'll point out that, looking at this just looks at our average daily membership, but what it didn't take a look at is also what's part of the AOI, or our online learning. With that, we know we have a head count of 369 students, and our AOA is 239 for what we're getting ADM for. So as you can see, part of that falls into, because those students are counted on minutes, depending on how many minutes they log online, can really affect our ADM, which I think is partly one of the things we're looking at here, is that we have a lot of kids on AOI, more than what we thought when we first did this budget back in June. So we do have that reduction, which means we have to reduce our M&O. You can see essentially that total reduction equates to $2.3 million. There's a couple things that vary in there. We have the decreased ADM, so that brings our revenue control limit down. That brought it down $3.1 million. That also reduces our M&O override, but our carry forward was more than what we had anticipated, actually quite a bit more. So that offsets a little bit of this variance. And then a small little variance in the Prop 123 with what, again, we always estimate that until they know all student counts. We don't know what, for all of the schools in Arizona, we don't always know where that's going to land. A couple other changes, classroom site fund. That used to be 3 funds, it's now 1. That one, we do an estimate. We estimated higher than what it actually came in at, so there's a reduction of $2 million there. Federal grants increased about $850,000. Again, we do what we think we're going to roll over, but we never know with grants how much we're going to fully roll over, and some of them actually go until September 30th. Same thing with state grants. Increased there because of results-based funding. So those are the big changes between Revision 1 and Revision 2. One of the requests I had at the last board meeting was to talk about the aggregate spending limit and what that would do for our district. Aggregate spending limit being a cap that the state puts on all school districts' K-12 budgets. The statewide has exceeded the amount that's the limit for this year. If the state legislature does not change or override that limit by March, before March, we have to reduce our budget approximately $27 million. So one of the questions was, what would we do? And that is for this current year budget. What would we do if that happened? I'm hopeful that it won't, but I want to be prepared if it does. So if that should happen, we have $4 million sitting in unallocated. We would wipe that out. We have $15 million that we project for carryover from frozen positions and budgets that aren't spent. We'd essentially have to put a hiring freeze on so that we make sure we our ending balance would have been about $15 million. Additionally, we would need to move capital budgets over. We have money in capital. We need to pull over $4 million of that into our M&O, which would mean we'd be freezing all capital purchases. That would affect technology, facilities. So that would come to a screeching halt and really would be what is our safety? What do we have to have strictly for safety? Everything else would need to be swept over. Additionally, we're in a good position where we have cash accounts, so we could cover the remainder amount out of cash accounts. So that would get us the $4 million. Now that means I could solve the problem for this year. However, we will create a ginormous problem for the future years. Because our budget for next year anticipates $4 million to help bridge the gap for salaries and increases, as well as carrying over $15 million and moving expenses over to cash. So whereas I could fix the problem for this year, for next year, we would see a $16 million problem. And that's where we get into, we'd have to reduce staff, we would have to freeze all vacant positions again, we would have to move capital over, likely $6 million. And so that would mean no textbook adoptions, no technology, facilities, again, safety only at that point. As well as moving more funds over from the self-insurance trust fund or self-insurance trust accounts to cover that balance. But the point of that is that if we were to wipe out our entire carry forward, that affects year after year after year after year the ability to be able to do things for our schools. That affects salaries. It could potentially mean that we'd have to go backwards in salaries and do salary reductions to be able to bridge that huge gap. So the point of that is, yes, could we pull, scrape, gather as much as we possibly could this year to cover it? Yes. But the harms would take us, it would be harmful for us for the next several years, if not longer. So with that, I will leave it open to questions.
Okay, Dr. Hartwells.
Thank you, Ms. Crozier, for your presentation, as ominous as it is. I want to just confirm my understanding on a few points. The early projections on the M&O that were made on November 30th were just that. They were projections using estimates that in some cases were based on historical trends, correct?
I'm sorry, on November?
On November 30th, when we were here a couple weeks ago.
That would have been the AFR.
Okay, so
that would be expenditures from last year.
Okay, so this past fiscal year.
Yes.
So I was asking you about earlier. Okay, that ties to these Prop 301 numbers.
Okay.
So since that presentation, though, Department of Education, you have the ADM numbers from which to make the presentation this evening, which is why we're doing the revision.
Yes.
Right? And the public hearing, just make that clear. Slide 4 is the current proposal, assuming that the state legislature enacts a fix to the current paradigm shift that's taken place this school year.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yeah, this is what we have we'd have this done as of November, so it's the facts of what we know at the end of November.
Thank you. So on slide 5, I'm clarifying for the public as well as myself here.
Okay.
Slide 5 is the high-level kind of peek at what is at stake if the state legislature takes no action by the statutory deadline of March 5th. to address the cap, that's the aggregate expenditure limit.
Yes.
Is set in Constitution for district schools only, correct?
Districts and charters. No, I'm sorry, just districts.
Public district
Yes.
schools only. Charter public schools are not subject to this cap,
No.
correct? Good. I've got a few what-ifs.
Okay.
So even if the district were to receive Prop 301 money that it has, let's say, this school year, to fund, let's say, an academic intervention program, including the important part of that program, to staff it with great teachers, the school couldn't actually spend those funds to help students because they may run into this expenditure cap. It's not a budget cap, it's an expenditure cap. Right? So that's a possible scenario.
So, yes, essentially because we are not funded, we don't receive state aid. We receive all of the cash that we need through our state taxes. We would still tax at the same rate, receive the same amount of money. However, we would have to reduce our budget and reduce our expenditures down to that lower amount.
So that scenario could come true.
Yes.
Yes, and I'll just also point out, we don't receive all the money that we need. As it pertains to this aggregate expenditure limit, my understanding is the Prop 301 funds was originally a voter-controlled fund because it was a proposition put to the voters, right? And last year, just for the calendar year of 2021, the district SUSD had about 11.6 million in expenditures. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Historically, when the voters controlled this funding, that $11.6 million would be excluded from the aggregate expenditure limit outside of that formula that the Constitution lays out for cap on, again, district schools only. Is that correct?
Yes.
And then in 2018, because that voter-controlled fund was authorized for 20 years, in 2018, the state legislature reauthorized this constructive use of taxpayer dollars, right?
Yes.
Which means that that voter-controlled fund then switched to a legislative-controlled fund. And when they did that, the legislature's reauthorization did not retain the precedent set by the voters to exempt the Prop 301 funding from the aggregate expenditure limit, correct?
That is correct.
So practically speaking, because I like to think that way, for the upcoming 2022-23 school year, or even for a fourth quarter of our current school year, a district actually spending the Prop 301 funds in accordance with voter-approved intent, this may now mean that the district school, while not having changed anything, the rules changed and could be penalized financially for doing exactly what the voters intended with their money. Is that correct?
Yes.
My last question. Are the ESSER funds from the federal government, do they fall within the aggregate expenditure limit formula?
No, they did not.
They do not.
No.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any other board member questions? Board Member Sanowski, Vice President Sanowski.
Comment, basically. I appreciate Dr. Hartwell's summary of the aggregate spending limit. I think it's really important that, and I know why she did this, is it was to inform the public of the urgency of this having a remedy provided by our legislature. And if not, as I understand it, if there's not a fix to this by March 1st, we will have to reduce our expenditures as of April 1st, right?
Our budget will have to be reduced.
Right, and that's a lot for our district to try to suck it up.
It's a huge amount of money for a
Okay,
district.
so it's really important for our general public to be aware of this, that the rules have changed midstream, so I appreciate Dr. Hartwell's bringing that into public comment at this section, or at least board comments for the public. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other board member comments or questions? Okay, we will move now to item D, which is our public comments on the public hearing on approval of revision of expenditure budget. Are there any public comments for the expenditure budget? If you have any comments on the expenditure budget, you may approach the podium. We will have public comment in our regular meeting in a little while. But if there are any comments from the public on the expenditure budget portion, you may now come to the podium. Okay, then we will move on. Okay, to 3A, which is, do I have a motion to approve the revision number 2 to the 2021-22 expenditure budget?
So moved.
Board Member Shinowski makes the motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Board Member Hartwell seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 4-0. Thank you. I move to adjourn our special meeting. Do I have a second?
Second.
Board Member Sinowski seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Our special meeting is adjourned at 5:17 PM. Okay, then we will now call to order our regular meeting at 5:17 PM. Vice President Sinowski, will you lead us in the pledge?
Yes. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I will have a roll call starting from my far right.
Zach Lindsay.
Libby Hartwells.
Julie Sinowski.
And Patty Beckman. Board Member Jan Michael Greenberg is not present, but we do have a quorum. I move to approve the agenda. Do any more board members have changes to the agenda? Oh. Vice President, or I'm sorry, Board Member Hartwells.
Thank you. I would request item L of the consent agenda be removed, please.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended without consent agenda item L, the ratification of expenditure SPS plus architects for Holcomb Elementary School?
Yes, so moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, Vice President Sinowski moves. Board Member Hartwell seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 4-0. Okay, public comment will be heard after item 9, our special presentation. Please note the meeting decorum. We will move now to our students and staff recognition and celebrations. Dr. Menzel.
Good evening, President Beckman, Vice President Sinowski, and governing board members. Those of us who are deeply embedded in the daily inner workings of Scottsdale Unified School District know that despite whatever else might be going on in the news, our teachers and students are deeply committed to what they're at school to do 180 days a year, and that is teaching and learning. You may recall we suspended our celebrations and successes at our November meeting in order to allow more time for public comments, and we have quite a bit of celebrations this evening, and I think that you will be really pleased to hear all of the stories of success. In fact, there's so many that we had to pare down some of them to highlight this evening. So this afternoon, you're going to hear about accomplishments from the classroom, individual undertakings inspired by teachers, and from athletic success as well. I'd like to start tonight by inviting Dr. Hagiat to the podium to kick things off. Dr. Hagiat.
Thank you, Dr. Menzel, and good afternoon, President Beckman, Vice President Sinowski, governing board members, and Mrs. Wagner. I can tell you from personal experience that arriving in the United States with little or no knowledge of the native language spoken here, English, is daunting. Imagine facing the situation as a sixth grader coming from Colombia in South America, or being raised in a family in which Spanish is the only language spoken, or coming from China as a high school freshman and not speaking any English. Those were the circumstances that were presented to 3 students we are recognizing this afternoon. And this is not just an SUSD celebration, but an Arizona Department of Education recognition as well. I would like to invite Sarah Zulueta Chaverra and her principal, Kat Hughes, to the podium, please. Sarah was an 8th grader at Echo Canyon School. Sarah was nominated as Student Success Story winner at last week's Arizona Department of Education Office of English Language Acquisition Service, HOPE, that stands for Helping Our Unique Population Excel Conference in Tucson. Sarah was nominated by her teacher, Kaya Hart, for her resiliency, perseverance, and dedication to her studies. Sarah comes to us 2 years ago from Colombia, leaving her mother behind, moving in with her grandmother and aunt here in the Valley, and knowing almost no English. Times have changed since then. Sarah would like to read the speech that was delivered at the conference.
Thank you all for being here today. I'm grateful for all the support I have received, and I'm happy to share this moment with all of you. Growing up in Colombia, I had many good times. I love my beautiful country. I love being surrounded by my extended family, my mother, my lovely grandpa. Even though you might think that sounds like a perfect life, it was not. Colombia was complicated. It was dangerous. It was unsettling, and it was confusing. My mother is a journalist. When I lived there with her, she wrote about many political crime in our city, which brought us many life-threatening difficulties. I remember seeing some of the gang members from my neighborhood that my mother wrote about circling my school. I knew they were there to threaten my safety. And even though this wasn't the first time my safety felt threatened, from that moment on, the choice to leave Colombia was clear. Coming to the United States and leaving my mother behind felt terrifying and confusing, but the right thing to do, all at the same time. I'm fortunate enough to have my loving grandma and aunt welcome me into a new life in the United States. I knew at that point I was given an opportunity that my friends that I had left behind in Colombia would only dream of. Right then and there, I knew I could never take for granted the gift I was given. I would work hard and do whatever it takes to succeed. My first day at my new school, Echo Canyon, I was so scared that I wouldn't fit in, make friends, or even be able to communicate with my peers and teachers. To my surprise, everyone gave me a lovely welcome, and I quickly found comfort in my new community. I had teachers who guided me and spent extra time with me to help me navigate my new language and the new ways of learning. My new friends from Mexico, who also spoke Spanish, were one of the most important parts of the beginning stages of learning English, and for this, I'm grateful. When everything started to feel like home again, COVID had other plans. Trying to keep up with the language during a pandemic where I wasn't able to socialize much was challenging. It wasn't easy, but I never gave up. I gave it my best shot at becoming proficient in English. There were countless obstacles, for example, online school. I wasn't the only one who struggled with it, but I certainly did not take it very well. I felt frustrated, upset, and sad too. I feel like I did not even learn what I was supposed to. I was distracted all the time, and I let myself get lost for a while in all that stress of online school. And I am not proud of that. I knew things needed to change, and I needed to make that happen for my future. Something that kept me going was my dream of someday becoming a fashion designer. Ever since I was little, I have dreamed of becoming a fashion designer. Since I was 11, I often sat down to sketch my ideas. Dresses, t-shirts, anything that has to do with designing clothes makes me happy. I have so many more opportunities here in the United States. I have worked very hard every day to do well in school and to be able to attend college, so I can learn and start my career. I want to be able to succeed, make money, and someday bring my mother to this beautiful country. Nothing would make me happier than having her here with me. I would like to thank my teachers, my principal, and family members for always being here there for me and helping me get through this difficult but amazing journey. If I could give advice to anyone in my same position, I would say never give up, always smile, work hard, do your best, and be strong. There's always a way to get through hard times, and always, always be kind to others. Thank you.
So today, we also want to present Sarah with our challenge coin. coin of excellence in education. We are so proud of you. And I'm going to go off script here for a second. We have Grandma Milades Rada. Señora Milades, ¿podría pararse, por favor? Felicidades. Venga a acompañarnos. This is Grandma, and let's congratulate her. So we're told Sarah's a leader in her class and assists other English language learners with their studies. She is a wonderful representative of Echo Canyon. Sarah, one more time, congratulations. We also have more to celebrate. I'd like to ask from Mojave, we want Kimberly to come up here, please. Kimberly Salgado Reyes and her principal, Dr. Asmussen, if you could please come up. Kimberly was also nominated for state recognition by her Mojave English Language Development Reading and Writing teacher, Yvonne Collin, and received honorable mention. Ms. Collin tells us that Kim, who is a 7th grader at Mojave, does incredible things. She is kind, interesting, motivated, determined, organized, exceptional, and has a great sense of humor. She uses all of these qualities to excel in everything she does. When Kimberly arrived at Mojave, she was quiet, but not shy about letting us know that most important areas she wished to focus on were speaking and listening skills. She was determined to get better at them. Regardless of the discomfort of doing so, she enrolled in the dual language Spanish-English immersion program and received services for academic and language supports in math, reading, and writing. Last year, Kimberly was part of our orchestra. She plays the violin, and a goal she set for herself was to learn to play bravado, an instrument. She had done her own research and found that usually the skill is for someone who is older. Regardless of this, she set out to achieve this and accomplish it in her own in less than a year. We are also very proud of Kim, and we want to present her with the challenge coin as well. Again, this evening she is accompanied by her father, Jerónimo Salgado, and her mother, Esmeralda Reyes. I want to extend our congratulations. Por favor, vengan para acá. Once again, congratulations to you and your student. Give them another round of applause. Although not here with us tonight, we also want to mention Desert Mountain High School senior Yiyor Sak, or he goes by Wen, born in China. Sak became an SUSD student 4 years ago. He was not able to join us this afternoon, but all indications our Sak has a great future ahead of him, in no small part because of his SUSD education and support from his English teacher, Richard Vernice. Sak has been accepted to ASU's Barrett Honors College and has applications in Harvard and MIT as well, and we expect we will be hearing great things about him in the future. Aside from these students' initial inability to speak English when they came to SUSD, the other thing they have in common is the support of the district fabulous ELD coaches, Jamie White, Lori Kelly, and Jody Claude. Do we have any of them here tonight? Let's stand up and give you a nice shout out. The investment this team makes in our English language learner is truly impressive, and we are most grateful for helping these students and many other just like them that also have that hurdle of a language barrier, but they still have those opportunities that we give here at SUSD, which equals their success. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to celebrate some of our really awesome ELL students. We appreciate the time.
Congratulations, Sarah, Kimberly, and Zach. You've worked so hard at learning an incredibly difficult second language. We're very proud of you and that you've taken on the challenge of moving to a new country and learning the new language with such determination. We're also proud that you've chosen to make Scottsdale Unified School District your learning home. Next up, I would like to invite to the podium Dr. Sackos, who is going to tell us about an Ingleside Middle School student who has done something most seventh graders have not, become a published author. Dr. Sackos?
Thank you, Dr. Menzel, and good evening, President Beckman, Vice President Sanowski, board members, and Ms. Wagner. The celebration I'm here to share with you this afternoon is one of our middle school students. I would like to invite Bo Donovan, 7th grade English language arts teacher, Mr. Liam Kloss, and their principal, Dr. Junior Michael, to the podium. Gentlemen. The Behind the Vision writing contest for middle school students and high school students inspires them to create poems and essays rather than writing on any topic they wish. They all get the same topic or prompt. In Bo's case, he wrote about butter. Yes, butter. Was it salted or unsalted butter? I don't know. It was just butter? We'll stick with that. I'm not sure how I would write about butter if I had to write about it, but with the tools Bo has learned from Mr. Claus's class and the bravery of a seasoned author, Bo took on this challenge. As a result, Bo's essay now appears in a recently published anthology of student poetry and essays. Mr. Claus, would you like to share anything with us about butter or Bo?
I don't know how much I have to say on butter.
Okay, well then talk about Bo.
I might leave that to the experts. I think maybe I share this characteristic with a lot of people here, that I find it very easy to romanticize teaching. And so I very often feel naive in front of 13-year-olds and their scrutinizing eyes. But, Bo, when everybody just like erupted into applause for you, wasn't that awesome? Wasn't that like so cool in our little 5th period classroom? Can we give him like another one? Yeah. Anyway, I feel kind of rude speaking up here when you were the one who did all the work. But still, you created something that was obviously so full of creativity and word flow and excitement and very off the wall, and that wowed a lot of people, and that's such a cool thing. So if there's any lesson that I can yank out of that and emphasize for you, it's, I guess, that, you know, sharing yourself and sharing your work is so worth it. It's so important and crucial to us, and I'm so glad that you did it, and I hope you carry it with you forward the rest of your life.
So congratulations, Bo. And as we celebrate Bo as a state and national winner of Behind the Vision writing contest, I would like to offer you one of our challenge coins on behalf of Scottsdale Unified School District. Congratulations. This is the coin in your hand. And we are looking forward to seeing you on the New York Times bestseller list in the future. Would you come back and talk to us? All right. Good job, buddy.
Congratulations, Bo, and thank you, Mr. Kloss, for your effort to inspire our students' creative writing in your classroom. The next celebration, you may recall that at our meeting a couple of weeks ago, I mentioned that Mojave Middle School would be hosting a first LEGO League Robotics tournament on December 4th. And it really was truly something special to observe those 4th through 8th grade students working through challenges on the fly with their robotics, especially our 10 teams from Scottsdale Unified School District that were part of that effort. Here to tell us a little bit more about that experience is Mojave Middle School science teacher and robotics coach, Mr. Bert Teveld. Bert?
Madam President, Madam Vice President, members of the board, Dr. Menzel, Mrs. Wagner, community friends. Over a decade ago, Pioneers at several places in the district recognized the potential of robotics. Navajo Elementary embraced the Lego-based program as a part of their new STEAM curriculum. Students were directing a tiny bot rolling outside their lab as if they were NASA engineers steering a remote Mars rover. At Saguaro, students started a club and found in Mr. Brandt a dedicated teacher to guide their exploration. So dedicated was he that he was even willing to give up some of his time on his beloved golf course. Marilyn Williams at Tivon stretched the brains of her students in ways that truly prepared them for real-world problems. Susan Lindberg, Steve Geislinger, Kay King, the teachers at Navajo and many more schools are carrying this program to this day. Dedicated teachers who routinely spend way more time with their students than they are paid for, and supportive community members have carried our teams to multiple state championships and trips to Worlds. I kicked off a program at Mojave and Kiva. The students there would come to Mojave to meet, prompted by my experience in industry prior to teaching. I knew that students have little opportunity in regular classes to truly deal with failure, stuff that doesn't work. You know, real life. To collaborate effectively, depending on your teammates. To communicate timely and clearly. To use critical thinking. For robotics, that's just everyday practice. It's world-class, future-focused learning. And that is what really is happening at Scottsdale Unified School District. Today, we celebrate the Saguaro Sabercats for their growth and success. About 6 years ago, Daniela Mara, then the Sabercat president, and I shook hands on the Sabercats taking over organizing the annual First Lego League, or FLL, regional tournament, an event that usually is run by adult volunteers. At SUSD, we put students in the lead, and that's how the magic happens. I've been fortunate to work with a string of exceptional leaders during the past few years. And I'd like to introduce the current leader of the Saguaro Sabercat Robotics, Natalie Foster, to tell us more about the recent tournament and the activities of her club. Oh, and those Navajo Robo-Buffs, they're still at it. Just listen. Natalie.
Hello everyone, my name is Natalie Foster. I'm a senior at Saguaro High School and I am the president of Sabercat Robotics over at Saguaro High School. So as Mr. Tavelda said, we have taken over the FLL qualifier for the last multiple years. And this year I was lucky enough to call myself the tournament director, helping orchestrate the Mojave tournament for over 14 teams. Now, our team saw this as an amazing opportunity for us to give back to the robotics community that gave so much to us. And we wanted to use it as a way to help get kids interested for future years in robotics and STEM, which is an increasing field which is always needing more people to come into it. Now, we were really excited to be able to have the tournament in person this year, as we had to have it virtually last year, but we were still able to reach hundreds of students. I had many coaches and students come up to me this year saying that they were so happy to be able to compete in person. They were able to work with the other teams rather than just relying on themselves. They were able to cooperatively work together to reach their goals and do better in the tournament. We were sure to strictly enforce COVID protocols, ensuring that everybody was safe. And we were sad to say, though, that this year, our tournament, we only had 14 teams. We're usually somewhere between 30 to 34 teams. COVID, unfortunately, did disband many teams, but we at Sabercat Robotics are working to try and go through our elementary and middle schools and really revamp those teams, making sure that they can come back together and experience the joy that robotics can provide students. Now, as I mentioned, out of these 14 teams, one of them was the Navajo Robo-Buffs. And this is actually really special to me because I was one of those students, and I actually competed at the Mojave qualifying tournament when I was in the 5th grade. We were able to make it to state just like the team did this year. So it was really a full circle moment for me, showing me that I was really able to give back to my community all what they gave to me. And I would also love to say a special shout out to Dr. Menzel and Vice President Sanowski, who were actually able to come and see our tournament in action, and it means so much all the support that you guys give to us, as well as all of the Saguaro faculty members and all of the SUSD faculty who continually support us. And all of this also wouldn't be possible without the wonderful high school volunteers that dedicate all of their time to this. And now I'm going to pass it on to Sydney Lowry, who I awarded the Volunteer of the Year award this year.
Hi, my name is Sydney Lowry. I'm also a senior at Saguaro High School, and I work with Saguaro Robotics. I just want to say something really quick, that as a volunteer who helped to organize and manage the teams at the FLL qualifier, this competition was an overall success. All of the participants were very kind and really professional, and Natalie, along with the many other coordinators for this event, did an amazing job in making sure that the event ran as smoothly and as efficiently as possible. And I really look forward to seeing how this event branches out and grows in the next few years. So thank you.
I want to thank Mr. Tavell, Natalie, and Sydney for all of your work. It was truly impressive to watch the students' critical thinking, their problem solving, tackling the challenge in front of them, and it wouldn't have happened without the senior leadership from the Saguaro Sabercats, so thank you for what you've done. So excited to watch the future success of our teams that are competing at the Arizona FLL tournament at Arizona State University the weekend on January 15th, and want to wish success to the Navajo Elementary's RoboBuffs team, as well as Cocopa Middle School's community team called the Electrobots, as they compete in that state level championship. I also want to highlight a few other things. We have so many good things tonight, but I think it's worth the time because it's why we're here. So if you ever wonder how far and wide the influence of SUSD's teacher goes, you'll remember that a few months ago we had a surprise visit from a student who's attending Yale to recognize a former counselor of hers from Chaparral High School. We have another story this evening to share, and I'm going to invite Dr. Sakos back to the podium to share that story.
Thank you, Dr. Menzel. Students accepted into the University of Chicago's class of 2025 were asked to nominate an educator whose guidance has helped them along the path toward intellectual growth. One such educator hails from right here at Coronado High School. Yes, you can go. Please welcome AP Government, AP Macroeconomics, and AP U.S. History and Economics teacher, Mr. Justin Slover, to the podium, along with his principal, Miss Amy Palatucci. And if the little Slovers want to come up, that would be awesome, too. We welcome him to the podium.
I don't know if you want to do that to yourself.
No. If he wants to run up here, he's welcome to.
I think that was a no.
Oh, no? Okay, we'll get him up here later. Mr. Slover was recently selected a University of Chicago's outstanding educator. He was nominated by his former student, Anthony Menjivar Calixto, who graduated from Coronado High School this past May. Here's some of what Anthony said about Mr. Slover in his nomination. Slover comes to class every day with an honest drive to teach and educate, always communicating complex ideas through interesting examples and through assigning projects that are very enjoyable, that build upon his remarkable lectures and create a feeling of goodwill in his classroom, being highly respected by both his peers and pupils. He is an alumnus of my high school and gives back to the community, which made him, not only through the enrichment of the youth, but also through his dedication to extracurricular activities. At my school, he runs the National Honor Society to provide support directly to the community, as well as running on the field when he teaches softball. Goodness sakes, that's a lot. Through this year, has been hard for many students, although this year has been hard for many students at my school, they can rely on Mr. Slover, whether it be for extra help on an assignment or just help from a friend. He is always there in good time to explain the complex relationship between government policy and the real-world effects on the economy, while cracking plenty of jokes along the way. He is above outstanding. I don't think anything I could possibly say can top that endorsement, and I am content to leave it to that. Congratulations, Mr. Slover. There is no more high praise than that of a former student. Let's see if Minnie Slover's changed his mind. But if not, Mr. Slover, please accept this challenge coin on behalf of the Scottsdale Unified School District. You're supposed to do like a secret handshake.
Sorry, secret handshake.
Yeah, then I slide and you keep it.
Well done.
Like that. All right, thank you.
There he is.
Julie. Vice President Sanowski? When you're done.
That smile said it all.
Okay. Thank you. Vice President Sanowski.
Wait, Natalie, don't leave, please. Actually, if Natalie and Sydney could come back up to the podium, I'd like for them to give a quick PSA of other things they're doing for students in our district, specifically dealing with science.
All right. The first thing that comes to my mind, as well as the work that I do with robotics, I am also the president of the Sisters in STEM initiative.
That's it.
Sisters in STEM was created in 2018 by 3 female Saguaro Sabercat Robotics members. I have been lucky enough to call myself the president for the last 2 years. We've seen major growth in our program over the last few years. We've reached over 1,000 parents and students over the last 3 years with our program and our message of really just trying to show girls that STEM is something approachable. Too many people view STEM as this field that only geniuses can go into, and we want to show them that STEM is approachable and fun for any and everyone. And while our event is targeted towards girls, we are sure to incorporate everybody. We want to create a nice environment surrounding STEM for girls, boys, really anybody. Sisters in STEM, we are currently working. We just had our in-person event hosted at Saguaro High School at the very end of October, and we are continuing to do monthly virtual events for students on the first Friday of every single month. Now, this just ensures that we can reach all audiences, and something that was really interesting about that in-person event is that we were able to reach students from 6 different cities in Arizona, which is something that I didn't think was ever going to happen, that we would reach kids all the way from Paradise Valley to Gilbert and Glendale. This just shows the power of our district and the power of STEM and how much we can work together to really just provide opportunities for students to help show them that any and every door is open to them. They can go into whatever field they choose. That is, again, one of the biggest messages of our program is we want to ensure that no doors remain closed to any students if we can help it.
And I would like to thank you for your service as well as your leadership as a student. That's really important. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. We do recognize that you may have exams to prepare for, so you can leave. And we do appreciate your leadership. I feel very confident that you will be successful going forward, and I'm so looking forward to hearing future success stories. Thank you for your commitment to the work that you've done. Now I want to turn our attention from the world of the classroom into the world of high school marching bands and invite to the podium Michelle Irvin. Please come and tell us about the amazing marching band achievements in Scottsdale.
Thank you, Dr. Menzel, President Beckman, School Board, and Gladys are very excited to actually talk to you today. We do have a few members from one of the groups that we're going to mention that exceeded all expectations. I do want to do a quick shout out that I appreciate so much your support of our fine arts programs and how you allowed them to do as much as they could during a pandemic year. We had 4 of our 5 high school marching bands in the state championships and scored in the top 7 in the state, so that's super exciting. But I've come actually to talk about these beautiful people next to me right here. I come as an Arcadia teacher 27 years ago, which is kind of crazy. We had a band program and it disappeared. And this wonderful director over here, Jan Gardner, hiding behind them, has brought this group to a new level. When I took this position, I had the honor of presenting the same people who received the same awards, which is outstanding. I believe it's Jan's vision of unifying his district. He has the band being coached not only by himself as the Arcadia High School band director, but Zach Saldo, the Hopi and Tavon band director, and Dana Maribel, the Ingleside band director. So creating that complex build is just amazing. So these kids stand here because they won both circuits of the marching band competitions first place. One of those circuits had 41 bands competing in it, and they received first place in the AZMBA, and they received first place in the ABOTA, which is the Arizona Band and Orchestra Directors Association. And to achieve both is incredible. In fact, no one else has done it that I know of, and I had the honor of presenting them this 2 years ago, pre-pandemic. They went through a pandemic year of no competitions, and then these kids came back and won the same 2 awards again when they first had the chance to competition. I know that their principal, Dr. J, would like to say a few things, but I just tell you I am so proud of you guys, and Jan, you're amazing. So.
Thank you.
Good evening. One of the things that was a challenge for me watching was they start at 41 and they work backwards. And so as we got down to 10 and then down to 5, it just kept, the anxiety kept building up, and I was there watching them. And when they announced number 2, then you obviously know who won. So it was pretty awesome to see. So these are great students here. They've worked really hard. I've watched them, seen them practice. They practice harder than anyone I've seen. And they have an amazing staff that is very unified, that work together to bring about this championship. And when you think about it, this is number
7 champions.
7 state titles, so pretty amazing. Most people go their whole life without ever experiencing a state championship, and to win 2 in one season, and then as a program to win that many is just excellent at its best. So congratulations, Titans.
Woo. Yep. Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Congratulations to all of you. Thank you for coming tonight. We know you also have exams, but we appreciate you being here. We're so proud of your accomplishments and look forward to hearing another great season next year. So thank you so much. So we've been able to celebrate academic excellence. We've been able to celebrate excellence in the arts. And now I'd like to invite our athletic director for Scottsdale Unified School District, Nathan Slater, to the podium to talk about success in athletics. Nathan.
Good evening, President Beckman, Vice President Sanowski, members of the board, Dr. Menzel, Gladys. Thank you for having us this evening. We had a tremendous fall 2021 season in athletics. We had several teams win state championships, as well as several teams that were runners-up. Our badminton team at Chaparral was second place in badminton. They lost to Perry in the finals. Congratulations to them. Our golf team at Saguaro also was second in their division in golf. The Chaparral football team unfortunately lost on Saturday at noon at ASU against Highland in a hard-fought game, but that was a tremendous accomplishment as well to make it to the state championship game. As well as Chaparral boys swim and dive. They actually, as these guys come on in, we'll get to you, see how big they are. The Chaparral swim and dive team for the boys lost out on a state championship by just 2 points. The Chaparral girls, you guys can stay here now, it's okay. You don't have to go back, you just stay here. The Chaparral swim and dive team for the girls won their state championship for the 8th consecutive year, and at Desert Mountain, yes. 8 years in a row. And Desert Mountain won the state championship in boys and girls swim and dive this past season, so congrats. And now, without further ado, we do have the 2021 Open Division Football Champion Saguaro SaberCats in the house. Congratulations to the Saguaro SaberCats. We have the Saguaro Principal Ann Oxinger, Athletic Director Matt Harris, Assistant Head Coach and a legend, Mr. Frank Rubin, Assistant Coach Louis Ramirez, and Mr. Milligan, I thought was here. There's Mr. Milligan. Come on, Mr. Milligan. Come on up here. And then also team captains Parker Brailsford, Thomas DiCerezo, Ridge Dotchell, Javen Jacobs, and Cannon Siegel. So congratulations again to these guys as I tell you about the season. The SaberCats had an amazing season. They went 12-1. They defeated California powerhouse Sierra Keene in 24-7. They defeated Cactus High School in the Open Division quarterfinals. They defeated Hamilton, who is nationally ranked, the #1 seed in the tournament, and also 5-time defending state champion Chandler High, who were both nationally ranked. And for those of you that don't understand football in Arizona, the 4A, 5A, and 6A take the best 8 teams out of their respective conferences and put them into the Open Division. Saguaro qualified yet again for the Open Division, and not only were they one of the top 8 teams in Arizona, they beat the best teams in Arizona and won their 13th state championship, and this was Coach Mons' 7th state championship as head coach. So congratulations to those guys for a tremendous accomplishment on that. And Coach Mons, he is unfortunately unable to be here today. And the reason why is after the game, Mickey Mouse came out and said, Coach Mons, what are you going to do now that you won the state championship? And his wife butted in and said, he's going to Disneyland. So literally, he's driving home right now from Disneyland. Yeah. So with that win, Saguaro is now currently ranked by Max Preps as the number 13 football school in the nation.
Wow.
Yeah. Athletics is obviously important, but so is academics. Saguaro football had 5 first-team academic team sports 360 AZ first team, 6 honorable mentions for that organization. They have 12 students in the program that have above a 4.0 GPA and 36 with above a 3.5. That's almost 50 students in their program with above a 3.5 GPA, which is amazing. They also have many individual accomplishments. They have 14 student athletes that were first team all-region in the Santan region, 3 honorable mentions. They had the offensive player of the year in Javen Jacobs. They have the player of the year in Tristan Monday, who was going to be here this evening but is fallen ill and was unable to attend. And yet again, the coach of the year, who's built just an amazing program, Coach Mons, and we're so sorry that he couldn't be here today, but he was the coach of the year for that region. And as always, the Saguaro SaberCats produce many, many student athletes that move on to the next level to play college football, Division I, Division II, Division III. And so, again, guys, amazing accomplishment. To win a state championship is amazing, but to win the Open Division state championship, going through the gauntlet you had to go through with Cactus, Hamilton, Chandler, and beating the very best of the best to prove that you are the best of the best. Congratulations, well done, and we're very, very honored. Good job. Okay, and with that, guys, I think we can go out this way really quick.
Thank you, Mr. Slater, and congratulations to the entire team. Having been on the sidelines on Saturday night, it was both an entertaining performance and a compelling victory, and we're very proud of your accomplishments, both in the classroom and on the field.
Dr. Mills, if I could really quickly, I'd like to thank the governing board for the tremendous support of athletics in Scottsdale Unified School District. Last Monday night, we had our big athletics banquet, and 4 of you were in attendance to that, which is very much appreciated. 3 of you were at the game on Saturday night. Zach, you were there at the game in the morning. So I've not had this much support in my time in 28 years in the Scottsdale School District, so thank you all for your tremendous support. And Zach and Scott, you've been at more events athletically than any leaders that I've seen in this district, so thank you very, very much.
So that concludes the in-person presentations, but we're not done with the successes and celebrations. So there are a few more I'd like to highlight this evening. The first is having been able to attend several high school theater productions already this semester, I can truly say that I'm not surprised that our programs received significant awards last month at the Arizona Thespian Festival. First off, Chaparral High School's Advanced in Theater 3 class received a superior rating for the one-act play Tracks, directed by students Kylie Glazer and Annabelle Washburn, and was one of 10 superior ratings Chaparral received. The troupe also, once again, received Gold Honor Group status for its community service, performance, and activities year-round, and excelled in tech challenges such as light hanging and knot tying. Congratulations to Chaparral and teacher director Ed Como for their recognition. The Desert Mountain High School Theater program took in significant recognitions as well, earning a ranking of All-State Superior for its fall production of The Odyssey, and its first ever Gold Standard Award for directing, acting, and design. You may recall our having watched a video of student Tristan Davenport's entry last spring to the National Shakespeare competition. Well, she's at it again, receiving an Educational Theater Association scholarship. So congratulations to the Desert Mountain Troupe and the new theater director, Shad Willingham. Not to be left out, the Saguaro Theater program made its mark at the Thespian Festival as well, with student Andy Arnold and Francis Royal taking first place in the Props Changeover Tech Challenge. Spencer Waring was chosen to showcase her original 10-minute play on the main stage in front of the entire conference. So congratulations to our Sabercats and director Tim McCandless as well. As you know, teamwork, whether it's in athletics or the performing arts, is pretty significant, and it's a skill that will serve our students well long after they leave Scottsdale Unified School District. There are two more stories that I think are important to share this evening. SUSD students are challenged and inspired every day to extend their learning, to question, and to think critically. One such teacher who has been doing this for some time at Saguaro High School is art teacher Michelle Peacock. And we did not want Miss Peacock's retirement at the end of the week to go unnoted. She started inspiring SUSD students 13 years ago at what was then called ANLC, or the Arcadia Neighborhood Learning Center, which you now know as Echo Canyon School. From there, she moved to Mojave Middle School for 4 years, and finally to Saguaro, where she called her art home since 2008. Along the way, she's created the kind of learning environment all teachers should aspire to, one that supports students and colleagues alike, one that inspires students, regardless of their art talents, to imagine and create. She's been recognized by Arizona arts educators organizations, as well as in national art educator circles. She created the Saguaro Learning Community's annual Springtime Art Show, led the mural project to decorate the school's auditorium walls, and was a key inspiration in Saguaro's recent Canal Convergent project, which if any of you were able to see was pretty amazing. I want to take this opportunity to thank Michelle for her contributions to the education of thousands of SUSD students over the past 13 years. She leaves behind an inspiration for all of us to be better and do better. We wish her well in her retirement. And finally, a great holiday story to tell. I get a lot of emails. Some of them are more positive than others, but this one was definitely worth sharing. So on occasion, our transportation department, buses and bus drivers are contracted by various community organizations to support their events. Last Tuesday, Philip Miller got behind the wheel of bus 416 and drove 78 children from the Boys and Girls Clubs of Greater Scottsdale's Hartley and Ruth Barker branch, which is just across Miller from us here at Coronado, to go holiday shopping at the Target store at the Pavilion Shopping Center. Last week, I received an email after that event from the Boys and Girls Club's President of Marketing and Communications, Audra Holt, about our driver. He was nothing short of amazing. He could have dropped off the kids and sat in the bus, but he did so much more. When the children were done shopping, he helped roll the shopping carts out to the bus and carefully tucked their bags into the storage under the bus. Obviously, each child had a pretty large bag, and the bus was at capacity. He carefully situated everything to ensure nothing was damaged, and he worked tirelessly for over 2 hours. To hear that kind of unsolicited high praise about one of our employees from a key community partner is just heartwarming at any time of the year, but especially at this time of the year. So I personally want to thank Mr. Miller for making these children feel so special on that special occasion, and I want to thank the Boys and Girls Club of Greater Scottsdale for their generous donors for making such an event possible. Every day I am proud, so proud of SUSD, and this is just one more reason why.
Thank you, Dr. Menzel. This is an extraordinary way to end our semester, highlighting that our students bring excellence not only in academics, but robotics, the arts, athletics, and so much more. We will now move to your superintendent comments.
Thank you, President Beckman and members of the governing board. My comments will be brief tonight, and I would actually like to request that we begin with a moment of silence. We've learned that Phoenix police officer, 22-year-old Tyler Moldovan, who was shot earlier this morning, you may have heard about that on the news, was one of our former students. He went through Cherokee, Cocopah, and Chaparral. He was a member of the class of 2018. He's got an older sister who is also a Firebird, and we are praying for him and his family and thinking of all of those who serve our community in that capacity. So if we could just take a moment to send good thoughts to him and his family. Thank you. We are truly grateful for all those who serve in law enforcement. The final thing that I'd like to say this evening before we move to our regular agenda is that we're at the end of another semester. A semester that has been impacted by COVID. It's been impacted by any number of issues and challenges. In some respects, it was much, much harder than last year as we navigated the challenges in front of us. But every day, our students came to school. Our teachers were there in the classroom to support our students. Our parents continued to work with our teachers as we navigate these challenges. And we were able to celebrate earlier this evening so many student successes. And it's a reminder of why the work we do is so important every day. So on behalf of the administrative team, I would like to say thank you to everyone who's a part of the Scottsdale Unified School District family, whether you're a parent, a staff member, or members of the governing board. And I want to wish each and every one of you a safe, healthy, and happy holiday season. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Menzel. We will move to item number 9 now, a special presentation from our Student Advisory Board, a presentation on Arcadia High School, Chaparral High School, Coronado High School, Desert Mountain High School, and Scottsdale Online.
Good evening. While you think I'm going to introduce and welcome Zach Oken, who is our President-elect of Student Advisory Board, I'm actually going to introduce Mr. Oken as Scottsdale Leadership's Jenkins Youth Leadership Award recipient. A couple of us were honored last week to go on Friday to the luncheon along with Dr. Hirsch to again hear about the amazing service and academic excellence that our students have. And so with that, I couldn't be more proud to be there when Zach received that award, and I just wanted to mention that briefly. And yes, I'm bragging a little bit. So with that, I welcome Zach Oken to the board to give us our monthly Student Advisory Board update. Zach?
Good evening, President Beckman, Vice President Sanowski, members of the board, Superintendent Menzel, and Ms. Wagner. I'm here to my name is Zach Oken. I'm the President-elect of the Student Advisory Board, and I'll start with the Student Advisory Board update for the December board meeting. So some updates we have is the thought exchange. We recently got the results back from our school resource officer, the preliminary results, and we also have subcommittee hot topics that we want to share with you. So for our thought exchange, our most recent one, our second most recent one actually, we asked what are the benefits of the school resource officer program and what can be implemented to improve the function of the school resource officers. And on this thought exchange, we're proud to share we had almost 300 participants. almost 300 thoughts and almost 4,000 ratings. So this was a good turnout. We would have liked more of a turnout, but we still did get some good thoughts shared. So some of the major benefits that a lot of the students and people shared was that the SROs help the community. They help with crime prevention. They help with the feeling of safety and emergency response on campus. And they help cultivate relationships with police officers. And they help with social and emotional support, demonstrated greatly by the crisis canines at Chaparral High School, and which we are going to get more at in other high schools and middle schools. So then we also had some enhancements that people were bringing up. And one of the biggest enhancements we want to make sure we get to is the overall awareness of the SRO program. So a lot of the people weren't necessarily aware of the SRO program and everything they do on our campus, and they do make up a big part of our campus. We want to make sure everyone's more aware of that. And also we want to get the SROs to be more involved in the classes, to be able to make sure the students know more about them, they know where to go to for support, and so the SROs can be more impactful on their campus and communities. We also would like to get more crisis canines and more campuses, which I know is something that everyone's trying to get, and it's something that's very helpful to our community. And then some other kids were talking about more stickers and more awards, so basically another way to increase involvement and relationships with the SRO officers and students on campus. So then we also worked to make subcommittees. So for our subcommittees, we actually did the Code of Conduct Subcommittee. So for our Code of Conduct Subcommittee, we have a main focus of working with the Code of Conduct to update it, making it stronger and more modern for the modern student, and also work to address dress code stuff, violations of the Code of Conduct, and disciplinary actions. We also have our College and Career Readiness Subcommittee, and on our College and Career Readiness Subcommittee, we want to work to provide an education of education, so work with ROTC, colleges, scholarships, internship opportunities, and job opportunities after high school to make sure that all the students at all the campuses are prepared for their future after high school. And also we have our communication subcommittee, which its main focus is to increase communication with students from the Student Advisory Board and from the district. So one way we're trying to do that is through the use of social media and different Google Classroom, different resources. That way we can share things more easily and more readily with students on campuses. We also have our technology subcommittee, which is working to change and kind of adapt the way technology blocked websites are working, and also the way students can access technology and use technology in classes, along with the cameras in the classrooms and all that stuff. And lastly, we have the next steps for the Student Advisory Board. So we want to work on extending our thought exchange with the SROs and also work on more thought exchange. So we have our class rank thought exchange that actually just ended, I think, last week. And then we also have more subcommittee we want to work on and make sure we're able to give a bigger impact to our community and students. So thank you for your time. If there's any questions, I'm happy to take.
I want to thank you. You guys do a fantastic job, and you take on some challenging topics. So I really appreciate you coming together and giving us your viewpoint and your voice at these meetings.
Thank you.
Vice President Sanowski.
I concur, and I look forward to your subcommittee work,
Definitely.
especially on you guys working with the adults on the campuses and coming up with maybe some revised dress code practices that meet everyone's needs better.
Of course.
Board Member Hart-Wells.
Thank you. I just want to add my thanks too, and to you personally. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You're an outstanding student, and your leadership. I appreciate you being here, particularly after the last time you were here. A lot of courage, and we very much look forward to your feedback. I like the idea that you're doing the subcommittees and kind of dig into some of these topics, and I'm particularly interested in the technology ideas that may come out. So keep us posted.
For sure.
Good luck on your finals.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all again.
Okay, we will move now to agenda item 10, public comments. Gladys, do I have all the cards submitted in the order they were submitted? Yes. I do, okay. This is a call for public comment for non-agenda items and consent and action agenda items. These may be brought to the governing board's attention under this section of the agenda. Action taken as a result of this kind of public comment will be limited to responding to criticism made by those who have addressed the governing board, directing staff to look into the matter, or asking that the matter be put on a future agenda. No other discussion or legal action is allowed. Comments are limited to 2 minutes, 60 minutes total. One person cannot give his or her time to another to increase the number of minutes an individual may speak. Okay, our first speaker is, okay, 2 more. Rich Hoffaker.
Thanks. Former U.S. Supreme Court Justice Potter Stewart once said, "Ethics is knowing the difference between what you have the right to do and what is right to do." In response to community outrage about Jan Michael's Google Drive filled with opposition research against Scottsdale's parents, Dr. Menzel seemed to content to dismiss the situation with a statement that the Scottsdale police found that there was nothing criminal on Jan Michael's Google Drive. Is that the district standard? Dr. Menzel will defend a board member's attempt to chill parental engagement through intimidation as long as it's not criminal. What need does Jan Michael have with cyber stalking parents? What need does he have with parents' personal documents? What need does he have with video surveillance of parents and pictures of their minor children? What need for any of this other than an attempt to intimidate parents into silence? Jan Michael claims that the drive was his father's, that he had nothing to do with it. He lives with his father, has worked on disgusting smear campaigns with his father, allegedly shares a laptop with his father. It's simply not credible to believe Jan Michael's claim. Yet, this is the story that Dr. Menzel spun and gaslighted the community to distract from Jan Michael's unethical behavior. It's not criminal. The district and this board need to do some soul searching and take affirmative steps to regain the trust of the community. Jan Michael, he needs to go. And Dr. Menzel, you should have some more self-respect and respect for the community that you serve. I understand you can't do anything to remove Jan Michael, but as a leader of the district, take a stand against the ethical, stand up for ethical behavior. Condone Jan Michael's action, call for his resignation, and quit making excuses for unethical behavior. Thank you.
Jill Dunnican.
In a recent statement to the community, Dr. Menzel framed parents as bullies for daring to voice concerns about the hateful curriculum that he's allowed to seep into Scottsdale schools. Dr. Menzel asserted that student-led clubs should be allowed free reign of programming in the name of inclusion. So let's look at some of the sexuality club programming that Dr. Menzel is advocating for. Number 1, from GLSEN's inclusive meeting guide, quote, "If you're discussing gender identity, talk about the gender binary as a white supremacist concept." Dr. Menzel, how is that inclusive? Number 2, GLSEN promotes that children as young as 3rd grade should be told, you may identify as a girl or a boy, or just identify as a person. It's your brain. You tell us what feels right. So 8-year-olds who have a hard time deciding what to order for dinner are asked to decide their sexual identities. Number 3, GLSEN asks students to express a commitment to the abolishment of police. Use your privilege to not only document the police, but physically shield Black people from violence and death. Dr. Menzel, is abolishing the police your idea of inclusion? Number 4, GLSEN also advocates that students steer away from the idea of the nuclear family structure. Do you hear that, Mama Bears? GLSEN wants to undermine your importance in the family. Now Dr. Menzel asks parents to believe that the GLSEN programming was brought in by students for student-led clubs. Yet it's been exposed that all Cocopa Middle School teachers are required to attend GLSEN training that coaches teachers to sneak GLSEN content into every classroom. So Dr. Menzel, we parents aren't fooled by your gaslighting, and we will not be bullied by you. I call on you to remove all race-baiting, cop-hating, sexualized programming from SUSD school.
Jeff Goracle? I'm sorry, I probably pronounced that absolutely wrong. Jeff Goracle? Sorry.
You're fine. I get it all the time. thank you guys for having us, letting us have a chance to speak. My name is Jeff Garacki. I've been a resident of Arizona for 50 years, and I've lived in Scottsdale for almost 10 years now. I moved here when I met and married my beautiful wife, Michelle, and her 2 wonderful daughters. I definitely married up. Thanks, babe. We are a good team. We both enjoy serving our community. We both done through our church, our neighborhood, work functions, schools, and now recently through our political affiliations. In my past, I have found failures in relationships and financial decisions. Several times I've had to start over. This is the beauty of serving a God that forgives and a country that allows such mistakes. Though that all important lessons have been learned, through it all, important lessons have been learned. On one of these dark days, I gave my heart to the Lord. He is with me always. Some days I walk beside him, and some days I'm being carried. This message is for Mr. Greenberg. I say to him that I say this all to him so that he understands that we're all humans and have failures. I need him to understand where I get my strength and the level of my resolve. I am not afraid of you, Mr. Greenberg, in your dossier. See, while you were busy poking mama bears with your stick, you swatted the hornet's nest that is just over your head. I am but one. I wish I was here to commend all of you on the great job you are doing leading our children. On the contrary, I'm speaking for thousands of Scottsdale residents and millions of my countrymen that have witnessed the disgusting conduct and the platform this body has put forward. Conduct that is inexcusable and so embarrassing. These are our children. This is our room. And we have elected this body to serve us. That, Mr. Greenberg, is our chair that you're sitting in. We are telling you, if you love and respect this body, it's your and its constituents, you need to give that chair back.
Mr. Jeff, please wrap it up.
You were surrounded by the wrong people and serving the wrong people.
Okay, thank you.
I just wanted to say, God bless you, this body, and the community.
Okay, thank you. Patricia Pellett. Patricia Pellett.
Well, that other awesome mom stole most of my speech about GLSEN, and I do second it. I want it removed from the platform of SUSD. It is divisive and racist. At the last board meeting, I was shocked when I arrived, and there was a group of angry teachers. I had no idea why they were so angry. They were yelling at me, screaming at me, bossing me around. I had no idea what was going on. I was very confused. They asked me, why do you want to defund me? I said, what are you talking about? I still had no clue what they were talking about. They had signs about, don't defund the teachers. The recall has nothing to do with the defunding. They also spoke here on the platform about the defunding. It turned out there was some fake news being passed around to the teachers to anger them about the recall. Very sad to see. So fact check is, the one defunding the schools is Dr. Menzel by overspending the budget, and the board who continues to not listen to the parents. The outflow of students will continue until you listen to us. Thank you.
Frank Ugenti. Frank Ugenti.
Thank you. For the record, my name is Frank Ugenti. I have 3 children in Scottsdale School District. It's necessary to say I speak for myself and nobody else. It's pretty known my ex-wife, the mother of my children, is an elected official. She could speak for herself, and she will. It's also unfortunately necessary to say I don't speak on behalf of my employer. Some folks might want to take what I say and disagree with it and try to cancel me or get me fired, and that's just the tool of a coward. But it's not something that anybody should do. With that said, I spent the last 2 hours outside. Your security wouldn't let me in this building because I am not wearing a mask. I don't know what authority you think you have over parents to tell us we can't wear a mask at a public meeting in a public building, but you have none. I want to thank the Scottsdale police, who were very professional, very nice with how they handled the situation. I don't think their head of security had this in mind when he took a security job protecting our children. Shame on you guys. You're elected officials. Your performance is unacceptable, the results of which are that you will be removed from your positions. You will all be removed, whether by recall or by primary, next election. When that happens and parents are sitting where you're sitting, you will be fired. You will be fired. Anybody that is found to have been a part of the dossier will be fired. This is how we handle things when our elected officials misbehave or don't represent us. These are the consequences. Thank you.
Jason Barone. Jason Barone.
Good evening. My name is Jason Barone, parent of 2 girls who have attended SUSD over the last decade. I would like to address Mr. Greenberg's behavior and actions and the implications on the board, the district, and the community. The board loves to tout their values, so let's review those values in relation to this behavior. Excellence, part of that is reference to self-discipline. Clearly not applicable in his actions. Integrity, the essence here around transparency and honesty. Empathy, treating all with kindness and compassion. Inclusion, treating all fairly and equally, assumably those that even don't agree with your worldview. Unity, well, that's the exact opposite of what's happening here between this community and this board. I ask you, if the board members fail to espouse these values, and in Mr. Greenberg's case, a failure on all accounts, how is it that he's fit to be a decisive voice to make decisions on behalf of our children? So what did Mr. Greenberg do after all these accusations and proof came out about his actions? He did what, after he drove a wedge between all these constituents and sowing mistrust in the community, he did the illogical thing that any aspiring politician would do. He filed paperwork for a new job. So now the Maricopa County Community College Board can suffer some of the same consequences that our children have. Lastly, on a more personal level, the most important people in my life are girls and women. As a parent, we sacrifice anything to ensure the safety and success of our children. Mr. Greenberg cannot relate to this, as his actions prove that without a doubt. But the most inexcusable part is the way he attempted to intimidate and humiliate women and leverage his position of power to do so. Without condemnation from this board, you are complicit in these egregious actions. It's a lot harder to live those SUSD values than post them on a website. Now is your chance to prove that they're more than just words.
Thank you, Mr. Barone. Okay, Rissel Longnecker.
Hello, my name is Rissel Longnecker. I am a parent of student of SUSD, and I second the glisten. I live it, and I was part of Cocopa last year, so I know exactly what happened inside there. My topic today is about the GPA. On Friday, December 12th, we received an email from SUSD with the title Weekly Updates. On the bottom of it was a very well-hidden but very important topic that was eliminating the class rank to the Latin honor system. Why wasn't this topic brought up at every high school family in SUSD? Why exactly are these unilateral changes bringing to the table? What is not just an addition to the current system? How can you compare required classes with those that are optional? Are we going to make our teams less competitive on national levels? Today, finals on high school only represent 10% of their qualifications. Teams are being passed without warranty that they had a good understanding on the required class, math or English. High schoolers are not supposed to pass a student just because. They are supposed to prepare them from a competitive way for a very demanding college life and globalized workplaces today. I am starting to wonder how we give those A+ to every school in Scottsdale when we are ranking 49 on overall state ranking. It is irrelevant that we are 63% average. It's still a 37% that the kids doesn't know what are you talking about. Accountability and rewards are qualifieds that I should be teach and emphasize on every aspect in our schools. But subcommittee's approach.
Please wrap it up. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Karen Warner?
Well, we have some extraordinary students in our district. I'm really hoping that we can keep it that way. I wanted to acknowledge Ms. A and Mr. Milligan at SWAR. They're absolutely extraordinary people and administrators. Now, I have two questions for you. What legacy will you leave as board members, and what will you be remembered for? Two of you are busy doing your busy work. What I've noticed is that this portion of the meeting means little to most of you. It really doesn't matter what the parents are saying. Some of you bring busy work, as you can see, to keep yourself distracted from what parents are saying. Some of you only check in when you happen to hear a key word that fits with your narrative or political agenda so you can chastise parents later. Some of you pay attention but don't have the confidence to take action. Being a board member, I am sure you were told this would be 15 to 20 hours a week, volunteer position, when in fact it's pretty much a full-time job, particularly in this divisive environment, and a new dumpster fire is exposed each week. Horrible assault at Arcadia. Did anybody follow up with that? Sexual assault at Chaparral. An employee in a propaganda video spreading lies about board votes, what she and her selected students said did not happen according to your council. When were you going to address that? A curriculum that was adopted based on a sham committee with only one parent on it who no one seems to be able to find, and admittedly was a mistake letter. A board member who lives with his parents and along with his father collected information on parents on a Google Drive. What is happening today is a reflection of you and your leadership. You are clearly okay sitting next to a person who clearly violated the code of ethics. What does that say about you and the district council? When people look back during this time, your names will be associated with the aftermath of the decisions you make today and the things you choose to sweep under the rug. Enrollment is bleeding. Academics are down. Not a great combo. Oh, and millions over budget. You as board members are allowed to seek outside counsel. However, you have to pay for it or get it pro bono. And I would assert that this is really a great time to seek outside counsel on matters that Lori Bird, the district leadership, including Greenbelt, tells you. Greenberg tells you. Remember, your name is attached to this industry. Will you be proud or will you be ashamed?
Thank you, Ms. Warner. Amy Carney? Amy Carney.
Good evening, Governing Board and Dr. Menzel. I'm Amy Carney, a mother of 6 students educated in SUSD. As we wrap up 2021, I was hoping you could reflect on a few things as we head into the new year. In the Arizona Department of Ed Parental Rights Handbook, ARS 15-102 states that it's the parent's right to inspect the school district policies and curriculum. Yet recently I asked administrators to review a curriculum that aligned with a novel that I'm reading for the Middle School Novels Committee, and I was denied the opportunity. Why? Instead of responding to parents' questions about club requirements on SUSD school campuses with silence, instead, perhaps you could come alongside concerned parents and foster open dialogue. And the narratives being pushed out in that most recent community email by Superintendent Menzel are false and frankly upsetting. ARS 15-102A6 states that parents may learn about the nature and purpose of clubs and activities that are part of the school curriculum, extracurricular clubs and activities that have been approved by the school. Back in May, I requested from you, the board, to request that all schools post their extracurricular clubs online after a COCOPA administrator refused to tell me what clubs they offered on their campus. Why? What is there to hide? So much for our SUSD values of truth and transparency. ARS 15-720B1 and 2 states that club meetings for 7th and 8th graders must be initiated by the pupils. Yet the COCOPA Middle School GSA leader admitted in a Gleason Award acceptance video that she recruited students to start the club and planned a day of silence for the entire school in April that caused division and disruption within the student body. Middle school should be a place where we invest in developing students' interests, instead of attaching labels and identities to them at the young ages of 11 to 14. Many parents do not feel they are treated as partners in this district, but instead as a problem. ARS 1602 clearly states that the parent has the right to direct their minor child's education, upbringing, and moral training.
Thank you. Jake Davis.
Good evening. My name is Jake Davis. I'm speaking once again. I'm tired. I'm literally tired. I'm tired of explaining to grown adults what pedophilia behaviors are. Keeping files of underage children on personal, work, cell phone, anything. It doesn't matter where you got it. It's wrong. It's so tiring that I have to explain this to grown, educated people. At what point do we all just agree that this is wrong? What is going on with the internal investigation? We know the Greenbergs skirted the law to do whatever they wanted to do to gain whatever information they wanted to gain. What's the nefarious acts behind it? Why are they doing that? There's been no threats that anybody has talked about towards the Greenbergs. They met me with a team of lawyers as I tried to file a restraining order to keep my children safe. So if they're going to meet me with a team of lawyers, they're going to come with hell, hath, and fury if someone's legitimately threatening them. This has a lot of resemblance to the Jussie Smollett case, right? Does it not? We have accusations of threats and hatred and bigotry going on, but as the dust is settling, the only people with the hate, the bigotry, are the two cowards that aren't here tonight. That's pathetic. As I sit in front of a panel of people, this is the most professional you guys have looked all year. Ms. Beckman, I commend you on the fact that you make eye contact with every speaker up here tonight. I think that's awesome. I do think it's difficult that you guys have to listen to what's going on. These two gentlemen shouldn't have said that. These two individuals absent. Thank you for your time. Like I said last time, please do right by our children.
Emmy Cardia.
Good evening, Governing Board, Dr. Menzel, and Ms. Wagner. My name is Emmy Cardella. I'm here for Scottsdale Parent Council just to inform you about the events that we have upcoming this coming month. On January 9th, we have an opportunity, the Special Education Committee is hosting another opportunity to meet the SUSD Special Education team at Mojave District Annex at 9 a.m. Marge Rayberg and her full team will be there to discuss the different programs available within SUSD and then answer parents' questions and take their feedback as well. And that will be available on Zoom for parents to interact that way as well. Then on January 9th at 9 a.m., we have our monthly general meeting where Dr. Menzel joins us for question and answer. And then we have Aaron Schurer, the Director of Career and Technical Education for SUSD, to talk to us about programs that are available to students throughout the district. On January 27th at 9 a.m., we have a PTO roundtable for all the APTs and PTOs throughout the district to get together and collaborate together. And then we are also trying to arrange for the 501c3 Save Our Schools Arizona to come give a presentation on the upcoming legislative session and different aspects that will deal with education. So we're still working to schedule that. Thank you.
Thank you. Tim Curtis.
Good evening. Yeah, I'm Tim Curtis, and I really would like to thank you for your public service. But as we go through all of this, I want to just remind you that public service is about being a public servant and not a master, and the service is what's really honorable. I don't want to come here and ask you to do a bunch of things. You guys have a lot of stuff on your plate. So I'm just going to try to ask you to maybe stop doing some things that I don't think are particularly necessary. Over, this whole COVID thing, not all of us are anti-maskers or anti-vaxxers, but I think you could say that I'm an anti-lister. And I know that sounds kind of funny. What is that? But, stop making lists. Stop making parent-enemy lists. I trust that you will stop tolerating these lists. It wasn't long ago that you were making lists of students that were in close contact with perhaps somebody that was exposed to COVID or something, and you were sending healthy kids home for days. And I'm glad you stopped doing that. It probably wasn't sustainable. I trust that you won't be making any more new lists. We're talking about getting rid of some of the mandates, which is probably good, maybe healthy, maybe not, but hopefully more on the healthy side. But making lists of who's vaccinated, who's not vaccinated, who's vaccinated 1 shot, 2 shot, 3 shot, booster shot, waning shot, 1 shot, I don't know, the 4th shot. I just think none of that's sustainable, just like the previous list. And I think it's picking sides and creating animosity. So please build back the trust. Thank you.
Okay. We move now to our first information discussion item, the Strategic Planning Phase 2 update. Oh, I'm sorry. Do any board members have a comment or a question? Board Member Vice President Sanowski.
Yes, I would like to make some comments about the public comments that were made, and I know this is the appropriate time. I would like to learn more about, it was stated that it was required by all teachers at COCOPA to go through this specific training. Listen, I would like to learn more about that. It was also mentioned that by one of the speakers that we were doing busy work here. I would like everyone to understand part of our role is looking at many documents at once, and I do take notes on public comment and the meeting throughout the entire meeting so that I can reference the information and potentially reach out to individuals in our community if it's appropriate. So when my head is down, I'm taking notes and making comments about potential issues that we can work on in our district. I also would like to correct the information. There was a comment made about we are millions over budget. That is not true. And then there was a comment made about individuals from this board who were cowards that weren't here tonight. I would like to just clarify that Board Member Lindsay left early to attend his daughter's school orchestra concert, as any of us as parents would also do. And then one last comment I'd like to make is the comment about, or comment I'd like to make about a comment was parent enemy list. I don't know anyone up here that is creating parent enemy lists. So I just want you to know, all three of us as board members are parents of students in this district, and I can speak for myself personally. I do respect parent input. I do respect the interests of parents, and that was one of the reasons why I ran for this position. So just to clarify, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to information discussion item A, Strategic Planning Phase 2 update.
Thank you, President Beckman and members of the governing board. As you know, we have been working on Phase 2 of the strategic planning process. So back in June, you approved the mission, vision, values. That was the end of Phase 1. Phase 2 includes focusing on our goal areas, the goal statements themselves, as well as specific commitments, or in other language, people often refer to them as objectives. And then finally, key performance indicators. Tonight, what we want to do is talk very briefly about where we are in the process. We had initially planned to bring forward a recommendation for governing board approval this evening, but we're just a little bit short of where we had hoped to be at this juncture. And what we want is to invite you as governing board members to ask questions, make observations between now and January 3rd when we come come back. The strategic planning design team is meeting again on that Wednesday, the 5th. We'll then, if things go well, be prepared to bring a recommendation for the governing board to consider on the 11th, but certainly no later than January 25th. So there are 5 goal areas that we're going to review this evening. I don't know if we can put up the slide with Goal 1 on academic excellence or not, but we start there. As a district, our focus is on teaching and learning and ensuring our students are prepared for success. And the goal statement itself is challenge and inspire students to reach high levels of achievement so they thrive as confident, dynamic, future-ready learners equipped to pursue their passions and ambitions. It's hard for me to explain in a way that maybe provides the right kind of mental picture of just how much work was involved in going through the words that are reflected on the page here. And while there can be suggestions for improvement, there were multiple iterations of how do we articulate academic excellence as a goal statement, focusing on how we prepare our students to be successful in their future, tied to their passions and ambitions. So I want to just share some of the draft commitments and then even suggest what a key performance indicator might look like. And as the governing board knows, I've sent this to you electronically as well so that we can get your feedback. But the first commitment under this goal is to provide learning opportunities that ensure all students graduate with a commitment to relevant and viable post-secondary experiences. In the words of Stephen Covey, begin with the end in mind. You know, where is it that we want our students to go when they leave Scottsdale Unified? What do we want them to be prepared for? And so that commitment is really designed to focus on that exit strategy. And when you think about what possible key performance indicators might look like, it could include something like increasing the percent of students graduating in 4 years, increasing enrollment in career and tech ed classes and industry certifications, increasing or enhancing the number of students who earn college credit through dual enrollment. And there are a number of others that have been suggested, but that's where we have a lot of opportunity to say, how do we ensure that as our students exit Scottsdale Unified School District and move on to that next phase of their life, that they're prepared to be successful? The second draft commitment here is to cultivate critical and creative thinking by integrating problem-based learning opportunities throughout the curriculum. When we think about this, some of the language that we talk about includes rigor and relevance. How do we make sure that our students understand the application of what they're learning in terms of academic content to real-world problems and situations? The first Lego League Robotics contest is a good example of students working on a real-world problem. They were tackling the challenge of supply chain issues. You know, how do we get products and goods from point A to point B, and how do we perhaps use technology to make that better? This was a great exercise with real-world applicability. And the goal here with this commitment is to infuse that throughout the curriculum so that students understand how what they're learning applies to the world in which they live and will ultimately lead. Potential key performance indicators can include looking at teachers that are trained in problem-based learning, or increase the percentage of staff trained in critical and creative thinking, and to look at the specific number of opportunities students have in problem-based units. The third commitment under this goal area is to differentiate instructional practices to engage students at their point of readiness and interest. This one's significant because the students come to us at all different levels of readiness, and it's incumbent on our teachers in the classroom and all of those who support our teachers in the classroom to identify where students are and then provide the resources and support to take students from where they are to ultimately mastering the content and being successful. And so we can look at specific indicators of success in terms of the percent of students that are at or above proficient on district benchmark assessments, or the percent of staff trained in differentiated practices, or decreasing the number of students that receive a failing grade. You know, so there are a number of indicators here that really allow us to zero in on how we know that we're being successful on that commitment. Two more commitments that are drafted at this time under the academic excellence goal. Provide timely and effective intervention and monitor progress to inform teaching and learning that directly impacts student growth. So the sooner we identify when a student is off track, and the more responsive we are in that environment, the easier it will be to get them back on track. When students fall multiple grade levels behind, often that can be demoralizing and sometimes they give up. So part of this goal is to really put those intervention strategies in place to ensure when we see someone struggling, and a student might be really successful in one content area and struggle in another, that we're providing the targeted and specific support necessary for them to be successful. Then the final commitment area here is to provide and expand district early childhood opportunities. And while there are any number of things that could have been included, this one is tied to the Mark Tucker's book on leading high-performing school systems and recognizing the 9 building blocks of those systems, and it begins before students enroll in kindergarten. So when we think about that continuum of support for our families and young children, having high-quality preschool experiences has been demonstrated through the Perry Preschool Study and a number of others to provide significant positive impact on our students as they enroll in our traditional kindergarten through 12th grade programs. So those are the draft commitments under academic excellence. What we want to do is then invite some other members of our cabinet to talk about each of the 5, and then invite you to ask questions or make observations. But Dr. Sakos will talk about goal area 2, which is culture and climate.
Thank you, Dr. Menzel. In an effort to really maximize academic excellence, we know that we have to have an optimal climate and culture within our school community. With that, the goal area I'm discussing is culture and climate, and specifically our commitment is to cultivate positive relationships, to build an inclusive, equitable, nurturing environment that creates conditions for highly effective teaching, learning, and leading. So in order to create that highly effective teaching, learning, and leading, this goal really impacts our students, our staff, our leaders, and our community. So with that, there are 4 listed commitments currently within this goal number 2. While they are simply stated, they are very purposeful, and I would like to say very, very mighty and important commitments. The first one being to provide a comprehensive multi-tier systems of support to create and maintain safe learning environments. You've heard me in the past talk about the importance of positive behavior supports for our students and those wraparound services to support them academically and behaviorally. This commitment is also intended to ensure that we have the same supports in place for not only our students, but for our staff and leadership as well. So some of the performance indicators that this committee or this subgroup had been talking about is increasing opportunities for training specific to our MTSS framework, to increase an emphasis on PBIS programs at all levels, to increase participation and positive outcomes in climate and culture surveys, that perceptive data being critically important. We've talked before about the Arizona Youth Survey data that comes from our students. And over a 2-year period, we also had Hanover climate and culture data that really was telling as to an individual's connectedness to the campus and perception of how a campus was doing. That included students, it included staff, and it included parents. And another example would be to decrease the number of office discipline referrals in our schools. So we know by decreasing at-risk behavior provides more for that optimal learning environment and allow for teachers to really teach. Going on to the second commitment is to recognize and affirm each person's inherent value. And specifically, we had talked about doing this by creating an environment where every person is seen, heard, and valued. And we want to make sure that we have ways to promote connectedness, wellness, social emotional learning supports for students and our families. And we also want to, one key indicator that we talked about is being able to increase the percent of employees who indicate that they feel seen, heard, and valued. A lot of this, again, will include that perceptive data that we talked about for a key performance indicator, such as, again, our climate and culture survey, similar to what we have done in the past. And specific to students, we talked about increasing percent of student participation in our co- and extracurricular activities. So those from athletics to club participation on campus, to engages in the arts, you name it. We want to make sure that we increase that connectedness to the school, and we know that is one way of doing it. The third one is to cultivate positive relationships, and positive relationships are critical so that we can be highly effective in teaching, learning, and leading. And so some of the things that we talked about perhaps as a performance indicator is increasing the family participation and family engagement at our school and at our district events. We also thought it was important to think about increasing open, honest, and timely communication between stakeholder groups. The last commitment under goal number 2 is develop or sustain a trust-based environment with multiple opportunities to achieve success. So we talked about, and this overlapped a little bit with the goal number 1 with academic achievement, is creating student-centered grading practices that allow multiple opportunities to demonstrate success. So being in that environment where you feel as though you have those opportunities to achieve success, and it's okay to fail forward. It's okay to learn from mistakes and to allow our students to do that. We also talked about, again, blending with goal number 1, the importance of increasing problem-based, authentic learning assessment opportunities for all students. And we talked about increase the on-time graduation rate as well. So again, while those are 4 simply stated commitments, they are very critical to ensuring the academic excellence as goal number 1 stated.
Thank you, Dr. Sakos. And while Dr. Bowman comes forward to speak about Goal 3, talented and qualified professionals, I'd also like to point out we do have a number of our strategic planning design team members in the audience. I want to thank all of you because what many people may not realize is the hours that have been spent working on this. And so I appreciate all of you who are here that contributed to the work that we're reviewing this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Menzel, Governing Board. It's a pleasure to share with you the area of my passion, and that's hiring the right people to do this work that we're talking about. We've made this commitment in our district about world-class system. You can't do it without quality people. So this area of the goal is so critical and so important, one that has so much passion behind what I get to share with you tonight. Our overall goal area is talented and qualified professionals. Lots of nice words in here that took many iterations to get to. Attract, hire, develop, support, and retain highly qualified, passionate, and talented professionals. The commitments, we have 6 of them that we have that are very close to, we've wordsmithed them down to this point. The first one is to develop and utilize robust recruiting and hiring strategies. The first thing that's so critically important is that we can attract talent to our district. Make sure that we not only have talent in the pools that we're going to hire, but we also have hiring strategies that are robust that call out the best of the best. So we want to attract the best of the best, and we want to be able to hire the best of the best. Some of the possible indicators that we're looking at is, are our pools demonstrating an increase in highly qualified candidates? And also, when you start looking at is, how are we doing on filling our positions? What's our vacancy rates looking like? So for the positions that we do post, are we able to attract the talent that we need to be able to put that high quality person everywhere in our district? I know sometimes these tend to focus and be teacher centric. This is for our entire staff. We want the best of the best in every position throughout our school district. The second commitment that we have is to build differentiated professional learning experiences based on input from all district staff. We receive a lot of input and feedback about the critical importance of listening to our staff and meeting their needs, rather than deciding from us in a professional level what their needs are. So it's a mutually benefiting situation to have those conversations together to make sure that we differentiate, to meet people where they are, to give them the opportunity to develop, to optimize the talent that they bring forward to our district. We will find out how we're doing that more than likely through some survey data and perception data. Those are going to be the best indicators in that one. Our third commitment is to create purposeful pathways for our staff and students to pursue education career interests. That's within our district. Before I came here, we had a tagline in our HR department that says, hire to retire. So are we creating those career pathways for that person that we hire in their first year, regardless of what it is? For our neophyte teachers, can they go, if they stay in teaching the entire career, are we promoting them to be national board certified teachers? Do we have a nice pathway that's laid out for them? We want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to give them the opportunity to grow their talent. Do we have pathways for teachers to become administrators? Do we have pathways for classified to become teachers? Do we have those well delineated pathways? So this is all about the career pathway that's critically important for our system to truly give this profession and people in the profession the ability to begin and end their career here. It's a destination district. Destination district. We take that very seriously. In that one, again, we need to track the staff members who do make those moves within our system. We're still working on refining, and we'll promote some of the indicators as we continue down this path. The fourth commitment we have is support employee agency, innovation, and retention by offering a superior compensation package and having a delightful place to work. So we, as we know, we need to stay competitive in the Valley. Compensation isn't everything, but oftentimes as we're attracting the talent, it is critically important that we show the value to our employees and pay them and compensate them to the best of our ability, being fiscally responsible at the same time. We would hope that we can remain in the top 5 of our comparable districts in compensation. That's one of the metrics that we discuss. We also think that if we're doing justice in this area, that we'll see a decrease in our we'll see less teachers leaving. Our retentions rate will improve. So we're looking at that. The next one is our 5th commitment, and it's develop, implement, and sustain mentorship programs for all district staff. What we currently have is we have some mentorship. We don't have unified across all employee groups. We believe that that's critically important, especially when you go back to the original words in the goal about developing and supporting our staff. So when we bring new staff in, we know that oftentimes within that first 5 years, that's when we tend to lose people. One of the key research pieces out there shows that when we provide support, structure, coaching, mentoring to our new staff, the chances of them feeling supported and being part of us, and then going to what Dr. Sacco said about climate and culture, that allows us to build that climate and culture to nurture our new employees, to keep them. Our goal is to keep them and not to have them leave within those first 5 years. Critically important on a mentorship program. In our 6th commitment is to develop, implement, and sustain professional learning communities for collegial support. The professional learning community is a term that came out of the Dufours, both Richard and Rebecca Dufour, centered mostly on what happens in the classroom. It's what do we want all students to know and be able to do? How will we know that they've learned it? What do we do when they haven't? And what do we do when they've already learned it? But that's the idea of the model of the PLC. However, we want to transcend that to all employee groups to make sure that we're doing everything we can to promote the collegiality and the spirit of working together. Again, never losing sight of our ultimate mission here, and that's to improve academic achievement and success for our graduates. And that can't happen without having the right people at the right time, and it can't happen without having high quality staff. So it is my pleasure to share that with you tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Bowman. Christine Harrington will present goal number 4 around community engagement and partnership.
Good evening. Thank you, Dr. Menzel. I have to tell you, one of the greatest highlights of this last week has been able to
engage with the different stakeholders through this process and really hone in on all of our goals, but specifically this one, the community engagement and partnership. That is to foster relationships with mentors, volunteers, and business partners to provide real-world opportunities for students that enhance and strengthen our community. And within this goal, we have 3 primary commitments. And the first is to establish and sustain and expand mutually beneficial partnerships within our community. The reality is the strength of our schools and our community can both be enhanced through these collaborations and the collaborative community partnerships that we can forge moving ahead. And within this commitment, we aim to celebrate what we have and those new ones as they come on board at all of our sites across the district, those who partner with the district and those who partner individually with our sites. Also, our second commitment here is to provide, in some of our KPIs, what we'd be doing is measuring the number of those partnerships that we retain, and then additionally those that are new each year. And again, that will vary around the district, so we're looking at this obviously holistically. And then our second commitment is to provide on and off-campus real-world learning experiences through business and higher education and community partnerships. Now, this is an area that was obviously rather hindered by the pandemic, but now as we get back to normal, I recall working with the Charros or the Scottsdale School District Foundation and even the Chamber, working to establish real strong relationships, lasting relationships with our business community as well as with nonprofits in the community, and providing opportunities for our students to get out there and to engage in the business, but then also to bring some of those folks into our classrooms and onto our campuses, so our students get the opportunity to really feel and engage in the real-world application of what they're learning in the classroom. And some KPIs, again, for that would be looking to the opportunity to retain, have meaningful and lasting relationships that continue to benefit not only our students, but our staff too. And then additionally, measure the time, talent, and treasure that is shared with our students, and also the way we are able to be beneficial to those businesses moving forward. Our students have a lot to offer as well. Our third commitment here is to expand opportunities for stakeholder collaboration and to inform school and district decisions. So we talk about committees, right? And this is a prime example of just that. It was, again, maybe one of the greatest highlights of this last week, sitting around a table and hearing from all different stakeholders that look through, they each have a very different lens. I try to wear my district hat and my parent hat, and we've got, a little bit of everything around the table. And so that was a great opportunity to listen and to learn about how we can all really support each other for the benefit of our students, our staff, and the community as a whole. And the way we would measure that is we already have a website, and on the website we do have a committee page where we invite the community to engage, to apply, to participate, and so we can track how many committees we have, what that level of engagement is, and continue to share out this information. So even if you're not serving on the committee per se, you can be involved in that you're kept up to date, aware of how the committee is moving forward and what that decision-making process looks like. I can tell you I'm really looking forward to being a part of this team and helping to assess the partnerships that exist and helping to forge some new ones. I think this is really going to go a long way toward enhancing that vision for world-class, future-focused learning.
Thank you, Christine. And last but not least, Goal 5 is optimize resources, and Shannon Crozier will outline the proposed goal and commitments for this area.
So as Dr. Bowman talked about how human resources was an exciting one for him, this is an exciting one for me because it talks about our resources. And even though money is not our only resource, we do have other resources that we want to be able to optimize. Our committee really talked about what are those resources. We talked about time being a huge resource for our staff and for our families, as well as the financial and technology. So when we looked at those things, our goal being optimize resources, was to generate and utilize resources to maximize educational opportunities in order to ensure organizational health.
So our first commitment being utilize digital technology systems to increase efficiency and improve access for all stakeholders. And where we really talked about on that part was that we want to make it so that the digital resources are accessible for teachers where they're communicating to each other, maybe not having to do the duplicate work, as well as for our families to understand I can go to one place and I can see everything I need to see, be it my students' grades, whatever activities are happening, and really understanding what resources are out there for them to see to understand what's happening on campus, what's happening with student grades. So we talked about a KPI being increased staff usage and consistency of digital technology systems. So being able to track to see what are our staff members using, what things work best, and are we able to get those things to integrate with each other. So it's kind of a one-stop shopping for our staff and parents, as well as increased student and family usage of digital technology systems, as tracked through parent and student view, Google Classroom, and school websites. So just really tracking, are our parents going to our websites? What are they looking at our website? Are they going into parent view? Are students going into student view to see grades and to see what's happening within that classroom? So really just tracking that to make sure that we're using those technology resources appropriately. Second one being develop and implement a marketing plan that showcases student, employee, and school accomplishments. And that really feeds into partly the last commitment, but it impacts our resources. Our resources being our employees, our students, and ADM. If we've done a good job of telling the great things that we do here, and we do great things here, that impacts our ADM. Families, know what's happening and know that their kid's going to get a great education, have a great opportunity in fine arts, a great opportunity in athletics. That helps our ADM, which helps our financial resources. So with that, we talked about increased customer satisfactions as tracked on parent and employee surveys, increased employee retention. If we're doing a good job, we should be continuing to to keep our staff. And then increased student enrollment, obviously being an indicator of that as well. Third one being align district and site budgets with the goals and commitments in the strategic plan. When we look at how we spend our money, it needs to line up with what our goals are as a district and what our goals are through the strategic plan. One of the ways to look at that is the annual dollars in the classroom report. Are those lying where we want them to lay? And comparing them to other districts and our peers and our state. And perhaps one area is higher than another in a peer, but if we choose to have assistant principals, because that's something we want as a goal, that might mean we're a little bit higher in admin, but knowing that that's the decision that we've made, and that we are using those resources the way that we feel that are necessary and that our parents want to see that money spent. Next one being ensure equitable distribution of resources to meet the needs of students. We talked a lot about equitable, and what does equitable mean? And equitable versus equal. And so one of the things we talked about is that increased stakeholder involvement in the budget process, be it through meet and confer, be it through let's talk, thought exchange, site council, PTO, getting the involvement. We've got to know what our parents and what our community want to know how to spend those dollars. As well as talking to community specialists. If we know that we need to put some money into a school because those students are below where we need them to be to get them up, talking to community specialists are going to help us to understand where the needs are at home for our students, to understand what we need to get them where they need to be to succeed. And then the last one was prioritizing time and resources in order for professionals to meet goals and commitments in the strategic plan. And we talked a lot about this one because there's professional development that will need to happen. And so one of the goals was understanding the professional development that needs to happen and making sure that it's the right professional development, that we're not essentially wasting anybody's time by attending a professional development that may not pertain to them or maybe they've already done. The other part of that being the time, honoring their time of the 6/5 or their planning period. When we have to pull teachers out of that time to be able to teach classes to sub or to fill in because we need additional staff. We haven't been able to fill that teacher spot. That takes away from their time for their own planning. And so we want to be respectful of that and looking at how can we make sure we're utilizing our resources to make sure those areas are covered so we're not having to take away a teacher's time for planning to do other things. So that was our 5 areas within optimizing resources.
Thank you, Shannon. I appreciate that. Final comment is, if you think about phase 1 of strategic planning, it's really setting the vision and direction where we're going. That's the high-level 30,000-foot view. Phase 2 is, if you're framing in a house, it's the bones, it's the shell of what we're doing. Phase 3 is where we put meat on the bones in terms of how we're going to actually operationalize and make happen what needs to happen in order to accomplish these commitments. So this is an absolutely critical part of the process. When you think about where we're going as a district and what we hope to have and achieve for every one of our students, this part, these 5 goals, you'll notice that there was some overlap in some areas. There was actually some arm wrestling about whether or not the marketing goal should be in number 4 or number 5. And you can tell who won. Shannon did. Actually, her committee, they were very insistent. But at the end of the day, part of what we see is that it's the synergy between the 5 that will move us to higher levels of performance for all of our students and to accomplishing our vision of engaging all students in world-class future-focused learning. So with that, I would invite reactions, feedback, thought, and remember, it doesn't have to be all tonight. We can take it all the way through January 3rd, but very interested in questions, and I know that any of the presenters would be happy to respond to your questions.
Any board member questions or comments? Vice President Sanowski?
Yes. Some comments and notations here. I really appreciated this. You mentioned the synergy between these different goals. Yes, I could hear it over and over again. It's great. With goal number 1, when we talk about this particular goal, I really want us to make sure that this is reflected in our course planning guide, because that is really what's giving our students the course opportunities to learn, and then, for us to be able to pull that into that academic excellence, to make sure that it's future forward learning opportunities. And I know the way our planning guide, and I've brought this up before, the way our planning guide is set, it's like a year's lag time, and I really beg that we revisit that, and that if we come up with, if we're asking our staff members, our resources, when we talk about this, I think it was the third one, it was mentioned about pathways of our professionals. I don't want us to get in this easy rut of saying the only pathway to improve as a professional is for our best teachers to become administrators. Because I do, no offense to administrators, I want to make that clear. I've gone through the coursework. It's rigorous coursework. I appreciate all that you guys do. But I want us to understand that the reason we're here, and I know all of you here understand this, but this is more for the public. The reason we're here is for our students. And we have to have the best teachers in the classroom for our students to succeed and achieve that academic excellence. So what I'd like for us to do when we talk about the interests of our staff and their talents, that we are allowing them to say, I would like to try this, this, and this. And that becomes part of that leadership becomes part of their contract in our district if it relates to student success. So I'd like for us to look at the career paths in our district a little bit differently. And what's not to say that it's appropriate for an administrator to also play a role of instruction in our district. And it could be business, it could be teaching students about finance, it could be guest appearances. We have a lot of talent in our district, so I don't want us to think that we're in this silo and this is our lane and we need to stay in it. I'd like for us to practice zigzagging a little bit as professionals here. I do want to comment about the committee structure, because I do feel like the input that our community has given about our community structure has improved our structure that we have in place. Not just posting on our website these opportunities, but the application process. So the input is valuable, it has been heard, and we continue to improve as a district. Shannon, I just want to say, commend your whole group for recognizing that our number one resource in this business is it's people. And so whether it's little babies, preschoolers, or us past retirement, that kind of thing, it's beyond the hire to retire, it's the birth to grave type of approach that I really would like for us as a district to really focus on, and that resource doesn't have to end when a teacher retires. We can bring teachers back, we can have them teach community education courses. I think we have that need in our community, and so I'd like for us to be open to that. I really appreciate the work of the committee members here on the strategic planning committee. I know it's a lot of work. One last thing I noticed in my notes, there was a highlight over decrease in office discipline referrals. I can speak, my own perspective is students don't go to the office for office referrals unless it's a violation of a law or a real serious code of conduct violation. Most teachers deal with issues in their classrooms. So what I don't want is for us to say, that's our goal, decrease referrals to the office, but not addressing potentially the root of the reason why a student is sent to the office for management, classroom management. Maybe we're looking at class size, maybe we're looking at various intervention strategies. I know we're receptive to new ideas, but let's make sure that in this strategic plan, as we're creating a better SUSD, that we're including better systems to support our students, not just academically, but also down to the core of every child and what their needs are. That's it. Thank you for the work that you guys have all done. Appreciate it.
Board Member Hartwells.
I'd like to reserve my right to send questions in writing after having more time to digest in light of your comments and your presentation, kind of knowing who the point persons are and the different goals. So I will say I want to take the opportunity, though, to thank all of the presenters of all the goals, all the leadership at the district, the teachers, the staff, the community members who have been involved in really harnessing a lot of what clearly was a lot of creative energy and distilling that into 5 goals. And I appreciate thinking about actionable ways to implement those goals, because that's what's going to make this happen. So, and that's not always very easy to do. We can have lofty rhetoric or throw out phrases to emote certain emotions, but really when the rubber hits the road, we've got to be able to do it. So I appreciate that component of tonight's presentations. And I look forward to working with you to tease a lot of that out. And then just broadly speaking, since this is our last meeting before the end of the year and the semester is ending at the end of the week, I want to thank all of you sincerely for all of your efforts. This semester has been a little bit more of an unpredictable wild ride than I think we would have liked, but your resilience and your poise and your leadership and determination to stay focused on your jobs is very much appreciated by this parent and this community member. And thank you.
I echo the appreciative sentiment as well. I know this has taken a lot of time from the community members and everyone involved in this process. One thing that was specifically brought up for Goal 2 that I heard not necessarily defined by this verbiage, but in different ways throughout every goal, which is the family engagement piece. When we talk about culture and climate, I appreciate that you specifically brought out the family engagement, but I think that can be applicable in almost every single one of those goals, especially academics. So I really would like us to have those committed ways to really involve family members, whether it be through, our English language learner families understanding how to navigate synergy all the way through every single one of these. I think getting that buy-in and help basically in the home and teaching our families about what we have to offer in this district is quite significant. So there's a lot here to digest and unpack as far as the work that you've done. Certainly well beyond our few minutes sitting on this dais to pick it apart. I mean, I wouldn't even begin to do that. I'm just very appreciative. I, too, will take a deeper look at it and see if I can harness any questions that may help you in the process. But overall, thank you for your time. Okay, we will move now to the consent agenda. I move to approve the consent agenda, the modified consent agenda without item L, the ratification of expenditure SPS Plus Architects LLP for Hohokam Elementary School. Do I have a second?
Second.
A second, okay. Vice President Sanowski seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 3-0. We move now to our action items. The first one will be consent agenda item L, as it was pulled by Board Member Hartwells. Board Member Hartwells.
Thank you. Dr. Menzel, is Mr. Rayler with us this evening?
He is. He snuck in the side door.
You are back in the under the beautiful artwork. All right. Mr. Rayler, I just have a few confirmatory questions. The reason I've asked for this particular consent agenda item to be pulled was to ensure there was no confusion by the community in terms of the difference between a budget and an expenditure and why we have this particular ratification, what that means as opposed to expenditure versus budget. So could you please confirm my understanding that this agenda item is not a new expenditure?
Yes, ma'am, I can.
Thank you. See, we can be brief, right? I like that. Nice. Very efficient. All right, so I want to make, again, because there was some misunderstanding earlier in the public comment about expenditures versus budget, I would like to take just about 30 seconds, and Mr. Rayler, please correct me if I am wrong. But the agenda item is a ratification by this governing board to address a past expenditure and reconcile it to current policy, the implementing practices that Dr. Menzel and the current finance administration has stated publicly, has been transparent in implementing, even in matters like this one, when they are identified where we have such a deviation. And all the energy is to a productive and constructive end that's been spent so far going through these kinds of expenditures, because judicious use of taxpayer resources is a priority not only for this board, but for Dr. Menzel and the administration, which includes your operation, Mr. Rayler, of facilities. So with that, thank you. I'd like to move to approve item L, ratification for expenditure for Hohokam Elementary School.
Okay. Board Member Hartwells makes the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Vice President Sanowski seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 3-0. Okay, moving on to our next action item, 13A, the pupil transportation school bus purchase. Are there any board member questions or comments? I have one. Ms. Crozier, would you mind kind of just going over where we are? We seem to be buying buses, talking about transportation, as we should. It's a significant expense to our district, but where we are in this process from when we gained first approval.
Okay, so the bond that was passed in 2016 allocated dollars specifically for pupil transportation. So because of that, we have been purchasing buses, wheelchair-type vans, wheelchair buses along the way. So at this point, we have purchased 11 wheelchair buses, 6 passenger vans, 2 of which have lifts, 15 84-passenger buses, and 10 special need buses. Tonight, we're asking to purchase another 3 buses. Along the way, as we purchase these buses, we dispose of the buses that are older and no longer what we want to use for transporting our students. And so we have also disposed of buses as well. We still have a little bit of money to spend as we go through. We've sold the final bond, and so with that, we have about $1.5 million left to spend towards buses. Like I said, tonight we're looking at 3 buses. Moving forward, we are looking at purchasing 4 more buses the next year, 84 passenger buses, as well as 3 buses in the 24-25 school year. And then the last one kind of depends on where budgets land. Buses have gone up in price considerably, especially this last year. I think everything's gone up in price this last year with COVID. But in addition to that, we've added some safety features onto our buses, so they've gone up a little bit in price. And so because of that, we'll have to, the last bond or the last purchase will really depend on what's left and how much they've gone up in price to see where we land. But we'd like to be able to buy at the last one another 3 more buses. We'll see where that ends up at.
Okay, that was kind of my question, is now that we've sold that last piece of the bond and the cash is sitting there, we're paying interest on having done so, is there obviously, you do this as needed, but are we looking at kind of a analysis with regard to how far into this, how old these buses are versus the cash just sitting there and potentially locking down pricing on these buses now?
Yeah, so one of the things that we look at, and Brandon's here, hopefully he'll tell me if I'm wrong when I state this, but one of the things we look at it with buses and why we don't want to just go out and buy all new buses this year is that you want to stagger it a little bit because we know in the future we'll have to do this as well. And so part of the theory behind it is staggering those buses in the years of service that they're in so that you don't get into a situation down the road where all of a sudden we need to buy 15 new buses right now because of the age of our buses and the quality that they're in. So that part of it, when we look at the bond and when we look at how we go forward with that, is staggering a little bit to see what are the years of the buses we have, and making sure that we don't get ourselves into a situation where down the road, like I said, we've got to buy a bunch all at one time. And so it's kind of looking at the aging out of those vehicles.
I appreciate that, and I know you do a great job. I just, you're obviously going to be watching, because the concern I would have is the cash sitting there, then all of a sudden becoming less and less as these buses go up in prices, and we find ourselves unable to purchase what we're actually needing. So I'll just let you report back in on how that's settling out as we move forward. Thank you for going over this, though. I do appreciate it.
Yeah.
Okay, are there any board member questions? Vice President Sanowski.
Yes. Hey, Shannon, I'm just curious, what happens when you said that we dispose of buses? What do we do with them?
Sure. Buses, as with all of the property that we dispose of, if it's something that we can sell at auction, we do, buses being one of them. So what happens is it goes through a process of recording what the asset is, and then sending that over to an auctioneer company to sell it, and then we receive the profits from that.
And then is there a limitation on where those funds can be spent?
It does go back into a disposal fund. It is a little bit more limited, so it's not like it's a place that we can just go and buy more buses. The other part of that is the amount that you get on selling those items at auction is not, I mean, it's something,
yeah,
but it's not a great deal back on those items.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Any further questions from board members? Okay. I move to approve the action item 13A, pupil transportation school bus purchase. Is there a second?
Second.
Vice President Sanowski seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 3-0. We move now to 13B, approval of the superintendent's annual goals and performance pay plan. Dr. Menzel.
Thank you, President Beckman and members of the governing board. You know, at the last meeting, we had a conversation about draft goals and had some suggestions for modifying those a little bit, getting a little bit more precise with respect to some of the performance pay goals in particular. There's been an addition to that based on other conversations and my own recommendation. So number one, here under the broad goals, what I would call priority areas of focus for the second half of the year, conduct a comprehensive evaluation of the K-12 mathematics curriculum instruction and assessment connected with the new math adoption from 2018-19 and report findings to the governing board. When we look at our data, and I have looked at a lot of our data, We are not a failing school district, but we have not optimized our successes across the board. And if there's one area where our data indicates we need to spend more time and energy, it's in mathematics achievement. So then I learned, as I'm looking through the information, that we adopted a K-12 curriculum in 2018-19. That leads to other questions. So it seems to me that the first step in being able to assess where we are and what we need to do to improve outcomes for students in mathematics is to understand the curriculum that was adopted, the level of implementation, fidelity, and then ultimately bring forward, that review and suggestions for where do we go from here, because we absolutely need to tend to this as critical to ensuring future-ready students in terms of post-secondary success and success in life beyond school. The other 4 areas here are ones that were presented before with a little bit more detail attached to that. So the focus on addressing the needs of our English language learners as an area of priority. Plans for expanding high-quality pre-kindergarten, which aligns with one of the strategic planning goals. Finalizing the agreements with the 3 associations. As you know, we're in the midst of meet and confer, but that's a new process in the last 5 years, maybe 6 since the last time we've done that, and we're approaching it differently than in the past. And then finally, expanding external partnerships aimed at advancing the mission and vision of SUSD, again, aligned with what we see as draft goals. The performance pay, the only thing that is a change here from what was proposed as an alternate was to drop the 5% or less of students 2 or more grade levels behind, particularly when we look at the current data and even looking at historical data. When it comes to 8th grade math, for example, the lowest performing category on AZ Merit was 28 to 32%. That doesn't neatly tie with how many grade levels behind you are, but it shows that we've been struggling in this area for some period of time. So to get in the next 6 months, actually 5 when you think about how long we have the students, January to May, and take that cohort of students, which for middle school is about 26% on the iReady assessment, and get under 5%, humanly impossible. And so we can, and we do believe that we can show statistically significant growth in these academic areas. I think the core work is really reflected in that first priority goal number 1 is to really do the deep dive on math, because that's where, there are some significant concerns and opportunities for us, and to build on what we see is already working, because I think that we will see success when we look at our mid-year data from iReady. I want to really be able to understand where we have our bright spots that should be replicated, because that's an opportunity for us to learn from colleagues within the system. So I believe that the revisions here reflect the conversation that we've had, the intent of the governing board to focus on important areas related to achievement for the next 6 months, and then the performance pay is really tied to things that are also priorities of the governing board as well.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Menzel. Do I have any board member questions? Dr. Hartwells.
This is actually not a question, it's a comment. I just want to clarify, I'll just make this comment. Performance pay is a carrot and not a stick. So they were developed with that intent in mind. And then secondly, I'll just note what we don't have here, but what did exist in the previous performance pay goals was a % of the total performance pay in terms of allocated across the 4 performance pay goals. And I wish, if we wish to add those, it might be instructive just to help implement on the goals. 'Cause I have every confidence that you will meet every one of them. So my proposal for that would be 15, 15, 55, 15.
Can you clarify that?
Yes, sorry. In terms of percents of the 100% performance pay, goal 1, 15, goal 2, 15, goal 3, 55, and goal 4, 15. That is just a proposal. I am certainly open to discussion.
Dr. Menzel, do you have any comments with regard to that?
No objections here to that recommendation.
Vice President Sanowski.
I just would like to make a comment. I noticed the addition away from our basic assessments of mathematics and ELA, the inclusion of science. Thank you for including that for our ELL learners. Appreciate that.
Dr. Menzel, I have a quick question. I know this is difficult, we don't want to narrow it down too much, but give me just some indication of what you would consider statistically significant growth. I can't even speak in this.
Well, Dr. Bachna is available in the cloud to explain the analysis that they can run that meets the scientific definition of statistically significant growth. I believe you're here, Dr. Bachna.
Is she?
Yep.
Oh.
They're working to get the audio working, so.
On another note, Dr. Hartwells, I do appreciate you bringing up the 15, 15, 55, and 15. With no objections from Dr. Menzel, I do believe it's a good idea and a good addition because, from a quantifying perspective, if we were to agree that partial or all were made, it's a nice indicator of where our emphasis would be placed when we were reviewing these. So I agree. We still working on Dr. Bachna?
Hey, is it possible for Dr. Bachna to, I don't know if there's another way to get the audio working? We can also do a memo that explains how she'll run that statistical analysis. So I'll be honest, I passed my stats course in graduate school, but I love my stats course. So my question to Dr. Bachna was, can we demonstrate statistically significant growth in these performance areas? And she said, absolutely, we can run that data to demonstrate whether or not the growth was not statistically significant. So that means it could have been accidental. Or have we seen something that actually is measurable and has a level of confidence to show that students have made the kind of progress?
Right.
Dr. Hockey got us. Have you got her on the phone?
I got creator.
All right, let's try this, Dr. Hockey.
Yes, hello. Using a statistical software program for educator data, statistical analysis for significance using various inferential statistics. So that won't be a problem.
Follow-up question on that, Patty?
No, I appreciate that she can do that, but just for the public and people in general, I would like to see, I would like to have us on the same page in understanding what statistically significant is. I don't expect you to come and say 2.7% necessarily, but from a narrative, is there some sort of understanding so that there's a numerical understanding that I get, but from a verbiage understanding of where we would be defining this, can you do that? Does that make sense?
It depends on the measure, and it'll have to depend on looking at the different. I haven't done enough of it on our particular data to tell you an exact percentage today. So it could vary based on our student population and how much of a difference there is between our groups.
Okay.
So it could be 1%, it could be 5%. I can't give you a set number. It just depends on the data.
I trust that you can do that, and I would like a follow-up just on what you can provide the governing board that would be defined as from you.
Absolutely, I'd be happy to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Vice President Sanowski? Oh, yeah, it's a mistake. Okay. Do I have any other questions from governing board members?
Problem solving. Very good.
Any other questions? Okay. So I move to approve the superintendent's annual goals and performance pay plan with the addition of the weightings in the performance pay goals, that we would have 1 and 2 be weighted at 15%, 3 at 55%, and 4 at 15%. Is that accurate, Board Member Hartwells? Yes, okay. Do I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 3-0. Thank you. Okay, we will move now to our future items. Do any board members have future items? Of course. Vice President Sanowski.
Yes, I am going to make a formal request that we receive an update on the ball field lights at Chaparral High School. I'd also like to learn of the status of a Title IX district athletic audit or analysis, if audit isn't the appropriate term there. I'm going to ask that Shannon, I believe is the appropriate one here, to learn of our financial Plan B, as I stated, should the JLBC projections related to the state constitutional aggregate expenditure limits come to fruition and surpass that $1 billion mark, creating that very large cut to our district public schools, what that would look like specifically in our district if that does happen, what our plan will be. And I guess that is it.
Okay. Any other board member future items? Okay, no, we move now to our dates of upcoming meetings. The next meeting is going to be Tuesday, January 11th, 2022, at 6 p.m. It's a special governing board meeting in the MDA. On Tuesday, January 25th, 2022, at 6 p.m., we will have a regular governing board meeting here at Coronado High School. Are there any governing board member reports? Yes. Vice President Sanowski.
At this time, I would actually like to share my appreciation to our community who has engaged with us respectfully over the past 11 months. As a matter of fact, many of our community members and organizations have demonstrated an interest of working side by side for years to support improving our academic and enrichment opportunities for all of our students. To those who have offered their time and resources to assist our students, teachers, and leaders, please understand that it is not always the loudest that leaves the greatest impact. I need you to know that I see you and I appreciate your time and support over and over again in our district.
Okay, thank you. Any other board member reports? No? Okay, I wanted to, we covered a lot with our student celebrations, but also just, thank our teachers in the arts. We've had some incredible holiday concerts. I was also privileged to attend the district choral exhibition, and I was just blown away. What some of these kids do in our arts programs and some of the teachers that lead them there is nothing short of fantastic. We are going to have, and I will speak about this again in January, the Coronado Promise kickoff meeting for media, et cetera, will be on February 4th. It's an exciting event to kind of talk to our community and officially launch the Coronado Promise Scholarship. When we speak about those collaborative partnerships, the Charros is a big supporter of this, and actually the Coronado Foundation for the Future as well. We'll have many members of the media there and the city and the mayor. So it's something we're very excited about, and I hope all of you can plan on attending or at least tune in to see what it's all about. All right, with no other board reports, I move to adjourn this meeting at, 7:48 p.m. Do I have a second?
Second.
Vice President Sanowski seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 3-0. The meeting is adjourned at 7:48 p.m. Thank you.